When you're lost in the darkness, look for the light, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the ClickerCast, your weekly show where we round up and break down all of the things The Last of Us, from characters to plot to story development, and we go sometimes even a little bit deeper on the game adaptations itself. You're joining myself, Chris, alongside my trusty Clicker ho-host, the man of many pixels, Mr. Richie. Welcome back.
Hello, everyone. Did you just call me a ho-host?
I mean, you could be my ho-host, co-host. It's not Christmas. You would be my ho-host if it was Christmas time.
Not your ho-ho-host.
Ho-ho-host. Of course, we're here to break down episode 6 of this week's rendition of The Last of Us. Titled, in fact, Kin, running with an approximate runtime of 57 minutes. Again, a nice timely within the hour period this time. We're going to talk about it. We're going to get into it. If you're new to the show, we basically go in depth on all things The Last of Us from our game knowledge, bringing that to the forefront, talking about how it's woven into the story. Myself and Richie both listen to the official Last of Us podcast every week to kind of give you some more insight from the director and the writers Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin. And basically just compile it down with you, the wonderful folks out there watching along, tuning in every single week. Live, of course, Tuesdays, 8 p.m. Not many weeks left now, Richie. It's getting close to the end, sadly so. But been amazing television so far, right? I'm enjoying every moment of it.
It sure just keeps getting better. Like,
it certainly does.
I don't have any complaints about the show at all. Like, it's fantastic television.
It is indeed. It's terrific television. And of course, we love breaking it down every week with you, the wonderful folks out there in the chat as well. So shout out to Sedna, Jin, Don, and a couple of other folks who've just joined us. We do appreciate your support, just like we also appreciate you clicking like, subscribe, and that ring-a-ding-ding bell so you're kept in the loop with all of the great content we do here at Helix Plays Games, because we don't just do The Last of Us conversation. We also do a weekly Xbox podcast that goes live every Monday. XPass live now. We also have a weekly PlayStation podcast on Tuesdays. Goes up before this very show, so you can get your PlayStation fill and you can come along and check out this PlayStation game adaptation. Live streams happen every single week too, and some things in between that. I think we're doing a charity stream this weekend, so check that one out too. But Richie, we're here to talk about The Last of Us, so let's get into it with our overarching first initial impressions of Kin. Episode 6. What was your first take?
It's hard to know because every episode's been so good, but this is definitely in the running for one of my favourite episodes.
Oh, interesting.
It's less action focused, but there's so much meaningful stuff, so much character development going on for Joel and Ellie, are basically the two leads of the show, that it's hard not to put this one right near the top. This is the kind of some of the moments that I've been looking forward to as the show's been building. You're starting to see the relationship blossom between Joel and Ellie. This is the pivotal moment in this episode. This is where everything changes for them.
All of the adventures they've been on so far that have brought them to this point. There's definitely critical decisions that happen this week that I don't think we would have got if it hadn't been for the build-up in previous weeks and the kind of the back and forth in their relationship, and obviously the trauma that they both experienced together, because that certainly comes to a forefront in this week's show.
We got some payoff for what it's been building.
Yeah, we certainly did. Good, again, great acting throughout, great set design, music score, which again I can't keep going back to, but I absolutely love the fact that I'm watching an adaptation and they utilize the video game score, and obviously they've got Santiago Santalala on as well. Not Santiago, Gustavo Santalala. I was focusing that much on not getting his surname wrong. I said the complete wrong forename instead. Who does he play in this episode?
I think he's just a background.
All right.
I saw in a breakdown from another channel point him out.
Is he sat strumming a guitar in the background in Jackson by any chance?
So.
Something like polishing.
I don't think he's in focus or anything, but I think he is just sat in the background playing guitar.
Yeah, and that's another look. Again, it's the love that they've shown towards the video game. But there's some key moments throughout all 6 episodes so far that, as a huge fan of the games, hearing those tones and those kind of acoustic threads just played out it's sublime, and it works so well. Who knew music could transcend different mediums and still have the same impact? And
it's good music.
It is good music. It certainly is, and I absolutely love it so far. I just want to give a shout before we get into the actual breakdown, because of course we go beat for beat on the plot on this very show. Shout out to from last week's, at the kind of finale of last week's episode, we got that amazing kind of action set piece with the giant bloaters, and we touched on it last week with the 6'6" bodybuilder who represented the bloater. But there's got to be any awards for kind of prosthetics and art design have to go to the Last of Us team this year, unless any TV comes out and blows my mind for the rest of the year. We need to give a shout out to Barry Gower and his prosthetic team, who've worked on things like Game of Thrones and Stranger Things, but some of the behind-the-scenes footage I've saw, wow.
It just goes to show you, when things are done practically, how much more grounded in the world it looks than CGI.
Absolutely.
I'm not against CGI by any such as imagination, but I've always felt like you should do as much as you can practically, and then you do CGI for touch-ups.
Absolutely. And I mean, we knew about practical. That's why the old Star Wars movies looked way, way better in a lot of regards than the prequels. Yeah, exactly. Well, some of the touch-up they did in the later DVD releases, we won't go into that for them.
No, that wasn't touch-ups. That was just straight-up adding stuff. But that's Star Wars.
Miniatures and...
George, he got carried away.
He did. And speaking of get carried away, before we do, don't forget, of course, if you want to support this channel a little bit further, you can get carried away and click join down below. From as little as 99p, you can become a Helix hero, help us bring better quality content to you every single time. And you also get early access to some of our shows and stickers and badges in the chat next to your name, like all the wonderful folks out there who are dropping, who love every week. They join us, Richie, and they drop the Fireflies, they drop the Clickers, and that's just custom for this very show. So thank you very much. Right. Let's get into it. As I said, 57-minute runtime. Let's drill into essentially the plot of this week's episode. Kickstarting things, no cold opening this time. We get the Last of Us introduction. We get the wonderful rendition and the fungus working its way across the United States. And we basically kickstart things off for the first time with a flashback from last week's episode. So it wasn't part of the previously on The Last of Us segment. It was actually, this episode opened with Henry's suicide from last week's, except for we see it from, I guess, Ellie's angle, right, this time? Like last time it was Joel, we saw Ellie's face as he shot himself in the head. This time we actually saw him put the gun to his head, like camera front on, looking at him. Which if memory serves, because I think last week we saw it from Joel's angle, and it was over the shoulder of Joel, and then it zoomed in on Ellie's face, and then you heard her kind of like scream as it happened, and we didn't see Henry actually kill himself. We still didn't see it this week, but we saw the camera dead on his face as he put the gun to his temple. So again, nice reminder of how jolly the ending was for last week's show. Just immediate, oh shit, yeah, that happened at the end, and then we obviously fast forward. Probably the biggest time jump we've had outside of the 20 years in episode 1. 3 months later now.
I think it's the only time jump. But I kind of like how they didn't put this in their previously on section, the flashback. The kind of because it's not part of the previously on section. It's kind of like it shows that the characters are kind of dwelling on this a bit. I think that's kind of the intent. Is like they're still thinking about this. Although we are jumping to 3 months later, this is still in their minds. This is still impacting them.
Yeah, we're going to see repercussions.
Yet. Like internally, they haven't resolved what's happened in Kansas City.
Absolutely, and you've got to imagine going through that. It would leave like lasting scars on you emotionally. I guess from Ellie's point of view as being a child, and Joel's point of view thinking he's had to experience and go through it all again. But even Joel, he's seen some shit. I very much doubt he's seen like a young boy and a brother die, suicide, and essentially murder beat for beat in the space of 5 seconds after you were becoming friends with these people. Like
we liked as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a random stranger. He grew to like Henry.
Absolutely. So with Henry and Sam, of course, off the books, we cold open 3 months later. We're in winter. Snows everywhere. We're up in the northern United States now in Wyoming, and we see a local man who'll become to be known as Marlon.
Did you think this was Joel?
No.
And when I saw the bow, I was like, oh, has Joel got his bow?
So immediately I went into kind of detective mode, sat watching it with my wife, and thought like the jacket's not right. Although the bow was there, it immediately the camo jacket just wasn't Joel's kind of style. So I was put off from that. But yeah, we were introduced to Marlon. He's bringing back 2 dead rabbits to the cabin, which I guess is a nod to the game when Ellie has to go and hunt rabbits. They were the same kind of white breed of rabbit that we see, or hare.
It's in the game when it transitions to winter, the first thing you see is like Ellie hunting a rabbit. So
brutal scene, by the way. That was one of those scenes when I played through the game with my wife. It was kind of, you might want to look away for this bit. Cute little rabbit on screen. just tottering about, and then right through the head. Yeah, not a happy approach for any animal lovers out there. But yeah, so we follow this gentleman into his cabin. He's got a bow and arrow, which initially I thought, like, is this where they're going to get the bow and arrow from? Doesn't happen to be, but obviously in the video game you have a bow and arrow from most of the game. Actually, it's my preferred weapon of choice to take down things silently.
It's quiet.
Yeah, absolutely, and you get ammo back potentially if you don't snap the bow. Yeah. I don't know what the algorithm is for snapping the bow in the game, but sometimes it is frustrating when you go over to the body and it's like, it's snapped, and you think, damn it. But yeah, love a good bow and arrow in a video game. They get back in, and then Joel is the bad guy. He's holding these two innocent people living in a cabin up in the north. He's holding them at gunpoint. We're introduced to Marlon's wife, Florence, as well, which I do want to point out for those who maybe recognise Marlon in particular. He's played by Graham Greene, who, if anyone's a Red Dead Redemption 2 fan out there, he voiced Rain's Fall in the Red Dead 2 Western game back then, so his accent, his voice probably sounds very, very familiar with those who love a bit of Red Dead. His wife Florence, played by Elaine Miles. I love their banter back and forward. Like they just they just remind me of my grandparents. Like, you could see them arguing, you could see them winding people up, you could see them having a laugh.
Didn't hurt me, by the way. I know, I've got eyes.
Yeah, it's just that great older person banter. I guess they're not old.
Gunpoint, and they're just still bantering between each other. It's like,
you made him soup. Yeah, they were hungry.
It's cold out.
It's like, yeah, of course, it's brilliant. And this is, of course, all the while Joel's holding them at gunpoint. Like, they should be scared, but they've obviously either encountered this before, or they just don't give a shit. They're like, if he kills us, he kills us. If he don't, if he doesn't, he doesn't. Because you can imagine, someone breaking into your home and you coming home from hunting and just finding your wife is essentially being held hostage by a total stranger. And then once again, just like everything, Joel's inquiring as to where they are on the map, and Ellie reveals herself. She's so bad in these situations when Joel's probably clearly given her some instructions to stay hidden, don't come out until I say so.
Stay hidden, keep a gun on them. Mm-hmm. Like, you're the surprise element if we need it.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, to be fair, the woman does rat her out when he's like, oh, there's a girl with her as well. And then she just goes, Ellie just appears out of nowhere. It's like, stay up there. Fine. You're involved now. Marlon's like, who's this little psycho? Because naturally, Ellie just foul mouth, giving him shit, winding them up straight. They're like 1,000-year-old, I think she says. Don't take offense to that. And basically, Joel needs to inquire. They've dropped into this house to find out where the hell they are, Richie. And it was one of those things, I guess, coming from a world where we have Google Maps. I did a bit of orienteering back in the day when I was in the Cub Scouts, and I can navigate my way around.
They've been walking for 3 months. It's easy to get lost. They have a rough idea whereabouts they are, but it's like, exactly, it's hard to say. Yeah,
it's one of those things. It's all well and good when you've got points of reference, but when you are out in a massive... Like, the state of Wyoming is a big state, and as Ellie says, we didn't see all the signs in the forest because there won't be any. So without landmarks and points of reference, you've essentially got the sun coming up and down, the stars, if you can even navigate via the stars.
They'll be staying off the roads because the roads are more dangerous.
If there is any roads. Like, they are literally in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, he wants to stop in, tell me where it's at, and this is what I quite like. Joel tries to use the two-person technique of, tell me on the map where it's at. If it matches up with what your wife's told me, I'm not going to kill you, basically. And this is still
going to come back. The rule of threes, where something gets brought up 3 times throughout the course of a show or an episode or something.
Like, it's Joel's technique.
This is kind of the second time we've encountered it.
Mm-hmm.
The first time, I think it's kind of talked about. This time we get to see it.
Yeah.
I think this might come into play in episode 7.
Yes,
Ellie.
I agree. Because, of course...
And it definitely comes into play in season 2 as, like, will be part of a trademark that she recognises from the character.
Yeah, and it again, for those who've played the video game, again, spoilers, we go into adaptation things, but yeah, in the game, Joel uses it to basically threaten people and say, like, look, if you don't tell me the truth, if your answer doesn't line up with the other person, then I know you're lying and you're done for. And he does it in a brutal way, but we won't get into that now because it might happen. Like you said, we might see it a third time put into action. So we'll get into that one. These old people, again, he's looking for Tommy. I love Marlon's answer where he's just like, I haven't seen your brother. And Joel's like, I didn't even tell you what he looks like yet. Does he look anything like you? Yeah, a little bit. Nope, haven't seen him. He's just so, like, nonchalant, doesn't give a fuck.
Bear in mind, in Wyoming, and Joel is, he's Mexican. in this adaptation. So his brother is going to be also Hispanic. He's going to stand out a bit more in a very white state.
They're from Texas, though, in the game, aren't they?
They are in the show as well, but they're ethnically Mexican.
And he says he hasn't seen his brother. And then Ellie says, "But what about fireflies?" And I love Florence, the wife, just sat in her little rocking chair, just loving winding these two up. Where she's like, "Oh, we get fireflies in the summer," and then he's like, "Not the bugs, the people." And she's like, "Oh, firefly people, they exist." It's like, yeah, she's just having Ellie's life.
I've seen like clickers and stuff, so it's.
I mean, firefly people. Yeah, wait till the part 3 of the game, and we get firefly people. They basically exaggerate a little bit and say, if you're looking for your brother, if he's gone out west, he's probably dead. East, west, which way they're heading?
Yeah, they're heading west.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the best way west? Go east.
Go east, yeah, but don't go past the river of death. They exaggerate, like they've seen bodies, they've seen people, clickers, infected left. It's just don't go anywhere near. Anyone goes that way isn't coming back. So your brother, sorry to tell you this, Joel, even though you're holding me at gunpoint, probably isn't alive still. And that's kind of like, okay, they let them live. They don't kill them. They're not horrible people. We know Joel
didn't want to kill the sniper in the last
episode. Yeah, exactly. And he's not that person anymore.
It comes back up later in this episode that he is not a ruthless killer.
Mm-hmm.
It's not who he is. Like, Ellie sees past that, but we'll get into that in a bit.
Yeah, he can be a ruthless killer, and he's getting old.
He can be. But it's not who he is. It's not his instinct.
So they leave the cabin. Nice little cameo from these two people. Again, Marlon and Florence, not in the game. This was just obviously a stepping point to maybe introduce the episode, bring in a bit more levity with varying characters, because as a TV show is structured, you couldn't just have it be Joel and Ellie for the first 20 minutes. You need to break up the interaction a little bit, otherwise it could be a bit more boring. Like, as much as I'm sure Pedro and Bella would have fantastic dialogue back and forth, it's hard to write like 20 minutes straight of just two people monologuing.
It's a combination of a couple of things. You see a bit of how Joel and Ellie's relationships developed over the 3 months. It's got that exposition element to it, setting up where they are in the world, the fact that they are a bit lost. It's also just having a bit of comedy.
Yeah, we get a bit of levity from essentially the suicide and death that was Sam and Henry. That happened obviously 3 months ago, but to us as viewers, it happened last week. So it's quite fresh to see that jump forward and realise like they're maybe not as traumatic as if we continue their journey just the following day from Sam and Henry, the whole episode would have to be about them struggling with coming to terms with what happened. And I think that 3-month gap gives the audience and the writers and the creative team a chance to maybe bridge it a little bit. And we accept as humans, we're like, well, obviously 3 months later, time heals all things a little bit. And they've probably come to terms with, they've had lengthy discussions about it, possibly. And obviously they're in a place where they're joking and having a bit of banter with each other. But either way, we leave the house. We leave them alive, thankfully. Ellie steals a rabbit because she's a little dick. But naturally, at the same time, you're starving out there. But would you steal from old people, Richie, to feed yourself? You're never going to see them again? Not to put you on a moralistic spot right now and show your true colours.
They're in, I would definitely consider it. And crucially, they didn't steal both rabbits.
Both rabbits.
They only took one. It's one of them things that they took what they needed.
I mean, Joel did tell her to put it back.
Actually, a Henry thing. That's a Henry from the games. Like, we only steal what we need. We need to leave everything else behind. That's what Henry teaches Sam in the game. So it's kind of that. I wonder if there's a bit of a nod slightly to that. It's like, yeah, we only take what we need.
Possibly.
And, well, at least decide, you know what, taking this now. These guys clearly know the lay of the land. They can easily find another rabbit. We haven't left them without food.
Yep.
Let's just take one. It'll be more useful to us on the road. Sorry, old people.
Sorry,
Marlon.
But like I said, Jill does tell her to put it back, but doesn't really push it. Like classic parenting technique there. Stop it, but then doesn't enforce it with anything. Because realistically, the back of his mind is probably thinking, it's an easy meal if we've already got it on us. I want to show her some... Yeah, because he does the hunting. We see later on Ellie's like, teach me to hunt, teach me to do this. And he's like, just slow down. I think it's the instincts
of being a dad. It's like, don't take that. You don't need that, actually.
You've done it now.
We could do it.
Yeah, you've done it now. And it is them two at the end of the day. If he wants to protect her, like, they could just walk out into the wilderness and both starve if they don't find this rabbit. So there is that element of survival too. But then before we actually kind of get out into the wilderness, Joel has to stop on the fence post, and he essentially, Richie, holds his chest tight. He seems to be in some kind of pain. He straight up just has a panic attack. like out of nowhere. Obviously, whether this is we'll find out later in the episode what it's the repercussions of, but yeah, just Ellie's like, what's wrong? Are you dying? Because she doesn't know. She's just a kid thinking, why is my protector essentially suddenly unable to even walk out of a house area?
Yeah, I'm trying to see if specifically was the trigger on this.
I don't think it was anything. I think it was just like something clicked in his brain and he just went, oh, I am not good right now. And again, panic attacks can be described as similar to heart attacks, where at any moment something can just trigger them. And he does clutch his chest, and you can see in his kind of his emotion, his eye, and in the sound does that like that muffled sound where everything's faded out. You can kind of hear Ellie talking, but she's not in focus, and she's saying if you don't die on me if you're dead.
I think what is the way Marlon and Florence describe the river of death and what happens beyond it.
Quite possibly.
I think he's now getting, and then the fact that they didn't know the fireflies suggests that there's probably no fireflies anywhere near if they know the area.
You've just been told your brother's probably dead.
Just a number of things that just because it's Ellie who mentions as he walks out the house that they didn't even know the fireflies. He's just been told his brother's probably dead. It's probably these number of things.
Mm-hmm.
He is in this very, very vulnerable state right now. It's getting harder and harder for him to be this like cold, detached killer who sees Ellie as nothing but cargo.
Yeah.
And he's really banking on Tommy at this point. He wants to find Tommy. That's part of the main reason he set out. It's not to help Ellie. He set out to find Tommy.
Absolutely. And
if there's no fireflies here, this is the last lead I had for Tommy. It's probably all this stuff coming into play all of a sudden. And yeah,
just hits him. Just hits him. Yeah, absolutely. And Ellie's kind of like final line is like, if you're dead, I'm fucked. Because she has that realization of, if Joel hits the deck now, I have to either go live with these two old people in a cabin in the middle of nowhere and I never get to fulfill out my adventure. Or the reality is like, they've got that father-daughter relationship. Like if I saw my dad going through something like that, I'd be really worried and panicked. And even though they have that kind of resistance to fully embracing their relationship still, the two of them, that's a moment of obviously genuine worry. And Joel's kind of also coming to terms with a panic attack. It's something you can never really prepare for until the moment. So he says that it's just the cold air or something, just hit him in the old man lungs a little bit, but he recovers from it. They continue. We get some fantastic Last of Us acoustic music playing over the top while they do like a montage of walking over hills, walking through beautiful sunsets. And again, Pedro and Bella are so lucky to get to go shoot on these beautiful locations, which I'd imagine some of it they will have done, some will be extras, but absolutely gorgeous vistas that we get to see. We will pause for a moment just to shout out to Hungry Moogle in the chat, who's dropped a $1 super chat in there. Thank you very much. We do appreciate the support. It means a lot. We'll throw that on the campfire. Because next up, Richie, we see them settling down for the night. Joel's fixing his boots with some tape. Again, that led to a conversation between me and my wife talking about, you kind of forget that in this post-apocalyptic world, no one's making shoes anymore. So Joel's boots are probably like 20-plus-year-old, and they've seen a lot of mileage put on them. And you just
walk for 3 months.
Yeah, and we just take it for granted. Like, I have a pair of shoes, I wear them for X amount of months, and then when they break down, I go buy a new pair from the shop. If the shops don't exist, if they're not made them, and you've worn the same pair for 20-odd years, yeah, you might have to resort to like taping them and fixing them back up with any means you can.
I mean, this is 3 months from Kansas City. Like, he's basically been on foot just every day, up, walk, sleep, and repeat.
Trekking across America.
These are probably the same boots he was wearing when he left Boston.
Yeah, very much likely. And that leads you to another point of like, if you're like Ellie and your feet are maybe still growing, what do you do? Like, your feet are too big for your shoes. You can't just like find new ones. You would have to scavenge for someone who had your size of shoe, which as someone who's got quite big feet, that would be tough for me trying to get out there, find size 11 shoes.
I took this as a slight nod to the game, actually, because he's just using like gaffer tape, which is something you find in the games, and you see him fixing something. Like,
just craft a new shoe.
It's a subtle nod, but I think it is a subtle nod to like the kind of craftiness of Joel, the improvisation sort of stuff, as you see him like improvising upgrades to weapons and stuff. This time happened to be the boots, but when you've been walking for 3 months, what do you care more about? Your pistol, your boots? The boots.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that you would have to deal with in this world. And yeah, Hungry Moogle in the chat says, time to apprentice under a cobbler. Yeah, if you work in Jackson, which we're about to see, and you have that a shoe fitting shop, you're in the money. It's in demand. We then see Ellie. She's looking up at the sky. She's staring at the aurora borealis in the night sky, the northern lights. Beautiful. That's one of the things on my bucket list. I don't know about you, Richie, but at some point in my life, I'd love to go to Iceland, sit in an igloo or a fancy caravan camping or something, and just look up. Be nice and warm, but also witness the beauty. You can see it sometimes. Like, you can see it where we live sometimes. If you got like a perfect night,
like hot spring.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
It's like a hot tub, nature's hot tub.
Yeah,
watching the aurora borealis with like a nice beer or something.
Yeah, take my sellotape boots off, put the old feet in for a soak, and just relax and watch nature at its finest. Absolutely. Ellie's up the top. Joel tells her to get down before she breaks her neck. They sit down on the campfire. Obviously, this must be, like you said, 3 months have been on the road, so they've had many a night like this, just laughing, talking over the campfire, and that's, you've got to imagine where a lot of the bonding comes into it. Ellie asks if she can have a drink of whatever Joel's got in his flask. She still thinks it's gross. Kind of like, she drinks it, but she's like, oh, it's still gross. I don't think it's coffee he's drinking this time, Richie.
No, it's
what do we think? What do we think he drinks?
Drinker.
Yeah, I think so. It's a bit of scotch or bourbon.
I don't know
bourbon.
where he got this from, actually, because leaving Bill's, I could see him having something when he's left Bill's. So unless he's had it in his jacket, because Joel actually loses his backpack in Kansas City. And there's a subtle Easter egg in this. He actually has Henry's. He does,
yeah, because Ellie gives him it at the end of last week's episode.
So Henry doesn't seem the sort to be carrying whiskey around with him. And so either he's found some en route. This is stuff he had since he was with Bill's, in which it's not that big of a hip flask.
Little nipper. Just a little bit on the tongue, just to tie you over. I mean, they're obviously still scavenging all the way along. They'll have came across many places to find some. I mean, in the game, you find plenty of alcohol to make a Molotov pretty much every other chapter. So it's out there. If you look for it, you can find it. But yeah, Ellie still thinks it's gross. It was a nice nod for anyone who's played the Left Behind DLC, which is going to be a huge chunk of next week's episode, if not all of next week's episode. We find out Ellie and her friend share some alcohol, and they both think it's disgusting still, which, to be fair, if I was drinking whiskey straight, I'd probably pull the same face. I'm not a whiskey man. But either way, they have a kind of little bit of a joke over it, and then Ellie starts to discuss about what their plans are for the Reach of the Fireflies. She's under the assumption they're just going to take her blood, craft some kind of cure, and her and Joel get on their way. And she kind of answers Joel about it, and he kind of retorts to her a little bit, saying, we? Like, almost like, again, even though they're so close right now, he's still driving home that message of no, I'm not committing to this relationship beyond the cargo delivery drop off. Still,
they've just actually had before this. They've just had like a conversation about their dreams, like what they're going to do when it's all over. And Joel wants a ranch with some sheep. Ellie says she wants to be an astronaut, which is a nod actually to The Last of Us 2.
Yep.
But it's like again, this is another moment that's kind of nice to put in there. It's an Easter egg for Last of Us 2, and 2, it kind of like shows they are getting closer. Though, like
opening up.
Joel's rules was we don't talk about ourselves. Like,
yeah, absolutely. And him saying, he wants to retire essentially on an old ranch with some sheep. And there was a particular line, I think, Joel, when he was explaining to Ellie, because sheep are quiet and they do what they're told. I've just finished season 2 of Clarkson's Farm on Amazon Prime, and season 1 he gets some sheep to practice doing shearing and such. Sheep do not listen to what they're told. They do not do what they want. They jump over fences, they knock over things, they run around, they don't listen to anything.
To what Jeremy Clarkson told you to do.
I mean, I'm also not a sheep, but
this is just Joel going. I think he's still trying to keep himself closed off a bit while engaging her a bit. It's like, I want sheep because I can basically like he's being playful here. It's like, they shut up and do what they're told. And it's like, basically, Ellie shut up and do what they're told.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ellie, of course, this is where we kind of see a little bit of Ellie's kind of time when she was in the what's called the Fedra school that she was a part of, and we see that she has had an element of education, and we've knew all along she's really smart and switched on, but she explains like she's a big fan of space and the sciences and stuff, and that she read all the books in the library, and that she rattles off astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and then goes into Sally Ride being like a famous one. So again, she's got this kind of role model that she looks up to as a cosmonaut, and who she wants to basically be, because everyone, she says, I think in the QZ, she's like, we had walls in front of us, the ocean behind us, and nothing to do other than to look up at the sky. And as you said, as we get into season 2, part 2 of the game, we really start to see like Ellie's fascination with who she wants to, like, she just seems like she knows she's destined for something greater than what she's currently doing. And it's really going to, again, I think, cement their relationship, and we're going to have a lot, I think, throwbacks to these moments in season 2, but we need to kind of bed that groundwork in now. So yeah, this is where she does, again, open up a little bit, and she explains about making a cure and what her expectations are of when they finally catch up with the Fireflies. Joel doesn't really have an answer for her, and she opens up about explaining several months ago, when Sam was infected and she knew he was infected, and she tried to use her blood to save him. And she does confirm that she knew it wouldn't do anything, which I think at the end of last week's show, you and me were talking about, is that Ellie being naive, or is she just like wishful thinking?
I do think it was just wishful thinking from her part. So like, I hope this works.
Yeah. Well, she kind of confirms that.
Like, honestly, in her position, I would have done the exact same things. Like, I don't think this is going to work. But either I do nothing and this kid becomes like a runner.
Yeah.
And probably might even kill us. Or I try something, and at the very least, maybe gives him some comfort in his last moments. Yeah,
absolutely. They take shifts, they start to go to sleep, and then we cut to Joel, wakes up in a panic after having dreams of sheep ranches on the moon. And that moment of, again, we've all done it, right, where you wake up and you think, either, obviously, for Joel,
where's my rifle?
Yeah, I mean, Joel, it's a lot more serious, but we've all woke up when our alarm's not maybe gone off yet in the morning, and you think it's like a lot later than it is.
You wake up in a panic,
and you roll over and go, "Oh, it's only 5 o'clock. I've still got time." But it feels like it's like late in the day or something. And imagine doing that on the cold stone floor of a cave when there's murderers potentially or infected people around you, and you're supposed to be looking after this child. Every morning you must wake up and like just, oh shit.
Joel said he will just like take both shifts. Like Ellie's like, "Oh, do you want to take first or second watch?" He's like, "I'll take both."
Yeah.
Then falls asleep.
And again, it goes back to, I guess, not necessarily his age, but like the journey they're on. Like, he is the adult in this relationship, and there's a lot of weight on his shoulders of protecting her, doing what's right, and with all the best intention in the world of staying up for a double shift of being on watch. We've all fell asleep in places we shouldn't have done, mostly class in school and college and such, and and whatnot. But yeah, it's impossible. If you're tired, you're tired.
Part of it is he is the adult in the situation. He sees it as his responsibility to look after Ellie. And that he doesn't like relying on Ellie to look after him. So I think that's why it's like, I'll take both shifts. And when he falls asleep, it's like, Joel's asking, you can't keep doing things like this. And Ellie's like, but I can, and I did. It's like, because Ellie goes through this whole thing. Like, she goes, I made sure I knew where the high ground was, so I could see all around. She had the rifle, like she done the whole like watch thing properly, as Joel probably would have taught her. But it's like, Joel's doesn't like that. It goes back to like start of Kansas City when Ellie had to shoot someone to save Joel, and he feels so much guilt over that.
Yeah,
he doesn't want to put Ellie in that situation going forward, because it's clear at this point, while he won't admit it yet, he does see Ellie as a daughter.
It comes from that way. Yeah, it comes from that kind of parental instinct, and that just kind of it's baked into a lot of us when you'd rather do it yourself because you know it's done right. And for better or for worse, in your relationships, your friendships, your work with your work colleagues, when you know you end up just doing something because you think, I can do a better job of it. In this term, like, Joel is the experienced survivalist in this relationship. And I think a lot of the time he thinks, even though Ellie's very much capable, and she showcased that a lot, he's still in that mindset of, I have to do it right. And if I let this slip, it's on me. And because he has that weight on his shoulders, he's willing to be tired throughout.
It comes down to his conversation later in the episode when he gets really quite vulnerable. He's putting up a facade, and he's not comfortable. Nick actually put a very interesting point in the chat. He's afraid to sleep because of the dreams. That might be one of the reasons why he's determined to stay awake, because he's traumatized by his dreams. Like,
yeah,
we'll get to that bit in a bit, because it's such a poignant moment later in the episode.
It really is, yeah. And Jin in the chat again says, like, taking a double watch is a daft decision anyway, because like, there's limitations. If you've been walking all day, within the with all the best intentions, your body can physically not. Yeah, like you might only get a few hours, and it might be a broken sleep because you're having nightmares or whatever. But the reality is, the body needs rest, especially when you're on a trek across entire states. But yeah, as you said, they wake up, and Joel gives Ellie a bit of shit about not waking up early, and they kind of hash it out. It seems like a conversation that's happened a few times. And he's just like, oh, yeah.
Well, Joel says you can't keep doing things like this. So it's pretty much, yeah, this is clearly not the first time.
But she's like, but I can and I did. And she probably still will continue to do so because she just loves that, like, snappy, giving him a shit response. We then set off on the day. And interesting enough, it kind of cuts to, I guess, a few hours ahead when they've reached what they suppose to be the River of Death. And
More Dam first.
We get more Dam. Do we get more?
Ellie, yeah, the dam is there. Joel and Ellie come across it, and Ellie's just like, oh, damn. Just like...
Oh, we've not reached the dam yet. We need to go across the bridge first. So we find the bridge that goes across the river, and Joel fires the shot off, which kind of scares a few birds on the river edge. And I didn't know why he was doing this, because I was thinking... Obviously, there's the bridge, which looks really, like, suspicious. It's just empty. Why do you think he fired a shot off? Was it to... check for people? Because humans would be like, oh, there's a gunshot, let's be alert. I feel like stealth may have been a better approach for this.
It might be, because if there's people like hiding in the tree line looking at the bridge, they'd see him coming, he wouldn't see them. By firing off a shot while Mia gave away his location, he can watch the tree line on the opposite bank and watch for movement.
Yeah.
If he sees, so maybe it's just a precautionary shot to see if it panics anyone into movement, and if he sees movement in the tree line, it just doesn't go.
Yeah,
something along that lines.
Because it was. I would have thought stealth would have been better. There's also obviously the infected approach. They respond to sound. So if he fires off a shot and a bunch of clickers emerge from the trees, then that's maybe shit. We don't go this way.
It's hard to stealth across a bridge, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
You are walking across that bridge. You're exposed, and there's no other way around unless you go through the water in winter.
Mm-hmm. Not at all.
So it's probably a lot of these unsaid things, like he's going across that bridge better. So if he's going to step in front of that bridge, anyone who's watching that bridge is going to see him. So stealth's pointless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So better to try and make noise and see if he panics someone else into making a mistake.
Absolutely.
There's someone there or not.
I'll wait till nightfall, but then you've got the whole, like, you've lost the whole day potentially. But they do make their way across the bridge, and the music swells to like a really tense sounding moment. I don't know about you, but I was on edge thinking something's going to happen here. Someone's about to step out. They're about to be ambushed at either side of the bridge. Something, and nothing happened. And it was like, oh, okay. We're just across the bridge. And they continue the journey. Ellie starts probing questions about shooting lessons, just asking them for just hints and tips on hunting, and will you teach me? That's kind of echoed throughout the whole episode, where she's getting to that point where their relationship's obviously so comfortable. She just wants Joel to teach her anything and everything he can. Like,
she's accepted him as a surrogate dad. Joel's not there yet.
Like, absolutely. Then they stumble across the hydropower plant, kind of over the ridges somewhere, and Joel confirms that, you just don't ask me how it works, I have no clue. And Ellie again, which I think is quite a key line that's missed, but she says, you should have just made something up, I would have believed you. It's just like a pass away line. I think that goes again later in the season as we get to their relationship evolving to the finale. That's going to come back. It's her saying, like, you could have just made something up, I would believe you, as you said, where she's at in their relationship. He could say absolute bullshit lies, but because she sees him as such like a trustworthy parental figure, Maria mentions it later on, like, trust, the only people who can betray us are the people who you trust. And already she's blindly following Joel and saying, like, yep, you make anything up, I'm here to listen, I'm here to believe what you say. And he just, again, he is, exactly.
Of everyone she's known, he's the one who's, like, probably been around her the longest.
Mm-hmm.
And she's safe. Like, she's probably never, since she left, like, the Federal Academy, she's probably never felt safe. She feels safe around Joel.
Indeed. So I think little throwaway line, almost actually like the whole dam section of the game. Richie, how did you feel about them going, there's the dam, she makes a joke about it, Joel makes fun of her that she's not the great comedian that her pun book makes out to be, and then nothing.
I'm glad it's referenced, and I actually don't mind them moving, because everything that happens in the dam section of the game does effectively happen when we get to Jackson, which isn't in the game. But I think it's one of these things, as a TV show, it very much works better being in Jackson.
Yeah.
Especially with his relationship with Tommy and with Ellie and how that plays out. I think it works better being in Jackson. It also establishes Jackson for season 2.
Yeah, it really does.
So the dam in the game, yeah, you get some conversations happen there, but then there is some of the biggest conversations that happen in the dam happen in Jackson, and other than that, the dam's just an action play.
It is, yeah.
It's not really needed. And again, this is what they've made reference to it. There's the dam.
There's a dam. And they do mention it powers Jackson.
It up to power Jackson. They just went, well, it's already powered up. Now we'll just have them in Jackson.
Absolutely. There was only one key bit. So for those who haven't played the game, you come across the dam, there's some puzzles to solve. You meet up with Tommy and Maria and a few of the guys within the power plant. The power plant gets attacked by some outsiders, and they lose a few men from the Jackson crew. And there's a key critical moment, which I thought was a shame we missed, which was when Ellie and Maria get separated from Joel and Tommy when all the fight breakout happens. And when Joel kind of gets reunited with Ellie after all the chaos, and Ellie's like frantically, they attacked us, they came at us from both sides, and Maria's with her, and Ellie's kind of recounting it to Joel, and that's when Tommy sees their relationship and what it means that he needs to take this girl off his hands, and that kind of cements it. Obviously, it's played out differently in the TV show, but it was a moment where I was like, it could have been done differently, but I understand, like you said, for a TV show, they have to streamline it in shows. And everything we do get relevant-wise does happen in the episode, so I don't begrudge it too much. But moving on, we kind of have another panic moment when Ellie says, like, when they approach a new river, a different river, she says, Joel, what if this is the river of death? And then we rewind a little bit and think, oh, so when they cross the bridge back there, that wasn't the river of death they were so aware of. This one might be. And then just as the music swells up, they're surrounded by people on horseback, and you're almost like, oh shit. Just when you're in your panic moment, you feel it starting to feel lost, and you maybe anxiety and worry start to peak. What a perfect time, Richie, to be surrounded by horsemen and women with guns, and you don't know who they are in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. Crazy.
It's like, this is the moment where, like, I have no idea how this is going to play out. Are these Raiders? Are these Tommy's men? Like,
who are they?
In this episode? Like,
absolutely. They get surrounded.
Doesn't seem to be among them. So,
well, the guy who seemingly is in charge, I thought this was Troy Baker when he had the balaclava
I had
up.
The same thing. When he takes his balaclava down, it's okay. It's not Troy, but when he's on the horse with his balaclava up, it looks so much like Troy.
His eyes.
It's like, wait, are they bringing David in now?
Yeah. Again, this would have been a perfect point to be David from the game. So those, again, who haven't played the game, there's another group of people, which Tommy and Maria actually reference them, who are basically like, what do they refer to them as? Raiders? Did they say Raiders? Raiders or something? Like, it's basically just random people who live out in the wild who are being arseholes and stuff. And yeah, they're surrounded by these people. And again, everything so far in this episode is pointing us towards there's trouble near the river, and they've all of a sudden been surrounded by the river. So we're kind of conditioned to think this is going to be trouble. But yeah, I thought this was Troy Baker's cameo. He was doing all the talking, and he's great at doing different voices. Remember, this is the guy who's voiced the Joker in Batman. He's done Joel, doesn't sound anything like Joel. He's Booker T in Bioshock Infinite. This guy does not sound the same in any two things. So,
do you think he's going to start to use his Joel voice in the show?
I don't know. I'm crazy
to see. Do you think that's
a
bit too much?
Well, actually, later in the episode, I also thought there could have been another person Troy Baker plays, but we'll get to that. Either way, they're surrounded, and Joel's told, like, yeah, put your weapon down, Ellie, step away. And interestingly enough, they bring in, again, Joel's so helpless in this moment. There's that moment where obviously he wants to do something to kind of protect Ellie, but you really can't. He's overpowered. If he makes a move, he's getting shot immediately. There's just no way out he can react in this way. Yeah. And it adds to the layers of panic which we see.
There's nothing he can do. Like, if he moves,
he's dead.
If he moves, they assume Ellie's infected. They shoot her, or shoot him, or both. Like,
there's no way out, is there? You can run, you get shot. Just any move you make is not going to be a good move. So you just kind of have to stay there and freeze up. As they bring in a sniffer dog, which was interesting because dogs are in the games, more so the second one, but the way they utilise it in the show is introducing it as essentially like a sniffer dog that the police would use to sniff out for drugs or something.
The first episode, though.
Genius. Like to see it actually utilised.
The dog in the first episode reacts to grandma.
Yes. Not in a sniffer dog capacity, but the dog knows shit's up. Yeah.
I think it's set up enough in the first episode that it goes, okay, yeah, it's entirely possible that dogs can
Well, yeah.
understand the threat.
Yeah.
Not in the same ways as scanners do, but the dogs can clearly see that Ellie's fine, because Ellie is fine.
But there was a terrific moment in TV when like the tension's building and then the dog sniffs down Joe and it's quite like aggressive and wound up. And then he's going, right, now do the girl. So and Joel's like, just let us go. Just let us go. Like, again, trying to get in like, put himself between Ellie and the problem. And, like, in my mind as an audience member, I'm like, this dog could just go to town on this kid right now because she is infected. We know she's infected. And at this point, we don't know how animals are going to react to that. And then we hear a noise and Joel's kind of going into his panic attack mode and the dog's just licking her face and she's playing with it. And it's like, oh my God, she's okay. So even though she's infected, dogs apparently can't tell that. She's, in fact, not a Terminator. And then the guy on the horse says, yeah, this is your last chance for a bullet. Dog might rip you up. Dog's fine. Dog's cool with everything. Dog gets called back. They then get took. Maria comes forward at this point, which I only noticed that on the second watches. Maria is actually, she is with them. I didn't even clock it the first time because I didn't know who she was at the first when it first happened.
I thought she was just
one of the people, yeah, because she doesn't really do much other than come forward. And in hindsight, watching it back a second time, she inquires about who Joel is because if she's obviously married to his brother, then if Joel does look like Tommy, you would see that resemblance. Maybe like. He's with a little girl. He's obviously not that harmless. Neither of them are infected. Who are you? And as soon as he says Joel, she must be like, right, this must be. There's no coincidence that he looks like my husband. He sounds like my husband.
And
he's asks, yeah,
who is cut off communication from his brother.
Yeah,
brother who is probably being described as the sort of person who will travel halfway across the country to find him.
Indeed.
Suddenly turns up. Yeah, it's like
no surprise.
Well, we have to, I think it's worth mentioning, probably one of the reasons why we didn't even consider that it was Marie is they changed their ethnicity.
They did indeed,
Doesn't matter at all.
Nope.
For how the character plays. But in terms of our identification, when she's got balaclava on, it's just in amongst loads of people and doesn't seem to be the leader of this group.
Yeah, why would you question it? Because, of course, very quickly, again, back to the game, in the dam sequence, you're introduced to Tommy and Marie at the same time. Or reintroduced to Tommy, I should say. And he very quickly explains who Maria is within about 60 seconds. So the fact that we get to see Maria before Tommy, again, changes things up a little bit for the TV show. They then kind of ride off on horseback as a group. We get to see Jackson for the first time. So as you mentioned, Richie, we don't really get to see Jackson in the first game. We see it at the end as kind of like an overlooking view of what the town looks like, but we never get to go there. So I'm guessing this is set up for season 2 as well. Like you want to set up these locations because they do play a very prominent part. What do you think of Jackson's security setup? Looks exactly like the game. Big wooden walls, gates,
Jackson
lookouts.
Itself looks exactly like the game,
which is great. 1 for 1. Can't argue with that at all. They go through the big gates. Obviously, it definitely looks like it's able to reflect a clicker attack, right? Even bloaters to some degree. And we go through, we kind of get an overview of the town. We see plenty of trade, like a lot of hustle and bustle, actually. This is quite a vibrant community going on right here. And
I think this is why it's more. I think it's more important to this episode that Jackson is in it than the dam.
Yeah. Because
we see, especially for like Tommy and Joel's relationship, we see like this is just a thriving community. Like, it's a nice place.
In all the shit show of a world that everyone's and we the audience have seen so far, it really is. Nick in the chat says, yeah, I think I quite happily live in Jackson. I think most people, if the world is the state it was, I think most people would.
Yeah. Well, this must seem, after everything they've seen, across everything that we've seen in the show and before the show, it's absolute paradise.
Safety, protection, electricity, kids.
Who aren't trying to kill you?
Absolutely.
There's no there's no basic Nazis.
Yeah, rape, murder, nothing like that going on. Yeah, it's quite a chill environment.
There's electricity,
which is crazy to get.
Heating, food, lights.
And as Tommy says in the game, kids will be watching a movie tonight. Yeah, like Hungry Moogle says in the chat, yeah, kids will be watching a movie tonight. What movies they watch is brought into question, but we'll get into that. Louise in the chat, waves, thank you for stopping by, Louise. Hope you're all good. So yeah, Jackson, fantastic place. Joel sees Tommy, shouts him out, Tommy. Did you think he was making a hangman's noose? That was the only thing that made me a little wary about how good this community is, because Tommy is very much fitting something that looks like a hangman's noose. Now,
I just took it as like an improvised crane.
That's 100% what it is. But just the layout immediately looked like a noose. Now I was like, oh, maybe Jackson Jackson isn't as good as it looked like.
Bear in mind, Tommy as web construction, he looks. Yeah, I didn't read too much into that.
Put it to practice. Yeah, construction's where the good money's at, but not quite as good as if you're a cobbler, Richie. The cry of desperation, Tommy, is like the relief on Joel must be so big at this point.
Credit to the awkward walk. Like when you see someone, like they're slightly too far away, and you kind of got that as like
you mean to make up that distance.
The time it takes to get to each other is just a little too long. It's like that's uncomfortable. It's like
it really is.
Like Joel's almost wants to break out in the run, but doesn't quite.
Yeah, there's loads of people watching now. He must still be a bit defensive. He's just he doesn't know Tommy's here, right?
Yeah.
Like, unless Maria on the journey has explained his brother's here, they've just been captured by these horseback people and brought to a fortress.
I want to assume that he has been told because he's on horseback and he's not like bound or anything. He's just on a horse.
Yeah.
Him and Ellie are both on horses, independent of each other. I assume that he'd been informed that Tommy was here, but still, that he hasn't seen Tommy in literally probably years. Actually.
It's interesting now I'm thinking of it that we don't see that comment, obviously for the sake of time, but you got to imagine if Joel, like if we saw the journey from where they got surrounded by the horses and then brought to the camp, Joel wouldn't just let his guard down immediately just because some woman goes, oh, we've got Tommy back at camp. Like, yeah, your brother's with us. That whole journey, he must be thinking, like, do they really have him, though? Or are we just getting brought into a trap here? Whether we're restrained or not. Remember, Joel's not good with strangers, and there's 8 of them who've just threatened him at gunpoint with a dog, and now they're like, oh, yeah, come with us. Everything's going to be fine.
On the ride back, there might be a couple of hours ride, to be honest.
Could be.
So you can assume that maybe like Maria's told him like said enough things to make sure.
Oh,
actually, no, you do know.
You know him, yeah. You know him.
You know me. Not only do you know my brother, you know me.
But doesn't say she's married to him. Keeps that piece to herself until later on, which makes for an interesting table conversation. Which they embrace. Interesting scene of Ellie on the horse when Tommy and Joel are hugging. The camera actively sits on Ellie for a while, and she looks a bit dejected. Of kind of. It's not just her and Joel anymore because it's Joel's brother, and Joel has a history with this guy, almost like that bit of resentment from a second child.
To another human being.
Yeah, she's never possibly seen this before.
She's never seen that before.
He wasn't even that one with Tess. Yeah, So she's kind of taken aback by it. She looks a little left out to me. We then cut to them in the big cantina. Again, you've got to imagine after the last few months they've had sitting in a canteen. It's like
with Ellie and the horse. I think it's also sets up that Ellie can ride.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, we just assume that
season 2 setup, like it would seem a weird thing for her to be able to do. To be honest,
well, she can't swim still, right? Unless Joel's taught her in these 3 months.
Yeah, which is kind of a weird thing. Like, why would you be in a QZ in Boston? Why would you get taught to ride a horse and not how to swim?
No swim pools. Well, maybe we'll find out next week on Left Behind as we get into that.
Maybe,
they all share a proper meal. Tommy, Maria, Joel and Ellie sit down. Ellie can't contain her enthusiasm for food. She actually shovels this food down. You're like, just breathe, woman. Breathe between bites. This is fucking amazing. She's, again, just dropping the expletives left, right and centre. Clearly Maria and Tommy kind of taken aback by who this girl is. Because remember, Joel's not explained to them who this girl is. He's travelled across country with you. It's just your brother rocks up and he's got this random kid with him who's not his. You got to wonder sometimes what goes through people's minds.
Like, you're being a dad?
Yeah, like who is
like going on here?
Yeah, again, before anything's explained, it must be quite an odd situation to be in.
Let's not pry too much yet.
Yeah, Ellie's shown a lot of aggression towards Maria and stuff. I think she's kind of got her feathers a bit ruffled by maybe the way Maria probes at Joel. There's a few times, I think, throughout, maybe obviously in their journey back to Jackson.
Maria's quite open in their dislike of Joel. It's not subtle.
Absolutely. There's actually a part which we'll get to in a moment, but yeah, I think Tommy explains about people being bad, and Tommy says like, oh, not everyone's got a bad reputation is necessarily bad, and then Maria like literally looks Joel dead in the eyes after that and says, not always at least, and the camera sits on her making direct awkward eye contact, like saying, Tommy's told me what you guys used to get up to. And I'm looking at you saying you were the bad influence on him back in the day, and now you're back in my life.
I think she's been really unfair on Joel. Like,
you don't know what Tommy's told her.
Yeah, true.
And how she came to take Tommy into their custody, essentially, in Jackson. So, well that might play out.
Before then, but,
who knows?
It's like, it's one of them interesting things where I think Jackson is a place that intentionally allows itself to have a bad reputation. So people don't find out about it. So it's part of like everything that makes up Jackson, what keeps it safe. So like the couple we see at the start,
River of Death.
They don't know. They don't know Jackson's there.
Oh, they'd probably live there quite happily. Two old people just chilling out with protection and electricity.
They seem to be people who just chose to live out in the wild before like outbreak.
Well, Marlon says only like 50 years before Joel was born, they moved out there.
But they don't know Jackson exists. All they see is basically the remains of those who seem to stumble across Jackson, and it doesn't go well for them. But Jackson is seems quite happy to leave like the corpses of raiders just out in the open, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just out in the open for people to see, so the area gets a bad reputation. I think that's the intent. It's one of the defense mechanisms. Yeah,
it obviously works well because they're remote, they're out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. But Joel and Ellie found them.
It's actually a nice place.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Probably one of the best places in the world to be right now. We then see again Ellie's kind of aggression continue towards the wider people around her as she shouts "what" at a girl who's watching her from behind a post opposite the canteen. And immediately, Richie, anyone who's played part 2 will know Ellie has a very close friend called Dina, who we are no doubt going to see in Season 2. It's a big, big part of Season 2, or the part 2 of the game, I should say.
It's just a small plot point in part 2.
Yeah, just a small plot point. But in the TV
show...
she's
one of the key characters in that game.
And obviously, we don't see her in the first game. She's not mentioned at all. We don't see Jackson in the first game, bar at the end. So... we do have to ask, and in the official podcast, of course, Troy Baker, for some reason, didn't even cotton on to this, which shocked me that he didn't notice it. He might have been sarcastic. But, yeah, this girl clearly stylized to look like Dina from the second game. And Craig Mazin, the director, says, like, could it be her? It might not be. Neil throws in a couple of jokes about saying, like... who knows? It might be. Basically, she's credited...
no way that's not Dina.
Well, she's credited...
They might recast the actress.
That's the thing.
That's Dina.
They've credited it as Staring Girl in the credits, and she's played by...
exactly like Dina.
Paulina Van Cleef is the actress, if you want to look her up. She's not done too many things yet. I think she's only starred in... this is like a third theatrical acting gig. And I think anyone who knows will know. But again, it's setting up for maybe flashbacks. They might, like you said, they might recast or something otherwise, but it's definitely setting something up. Otherwise, why have that scene there at that moment in time? But Ellie gives a shit. She shouts, "What?" And then Maria explains, like, we're not used to kids like you. And then Ellie asks for a gun back. And she says, kids don't carry weapons. And we kind of just get this bad blood between Maria and Ellie. And I think this is because Ellie can sense she's giving Joel shit. So she's going to give her shit because she's picking on her dad, essentially.
Defensive.
Yeah, absolutely defensive. And probably rightly so in this regard. Joel asks for family time with Tommy, which then, again, gets that awkward elephant in the room at the moment where kind of put the hands on each other and go, well, Maria kind of is family. Awkward.
We're kind of having the family time.
Yeah, we already are. And it's quite...
anything, family time is...
Ellie, go away.
Your daughter? Like...
yeah.
You have another daughter you didn't know about?
Yep. Then Ellie's like, oh shit, congratulations. I love how Joel just doesn't react.
Such an Ellie reaction.
Congrats. Congrats. And then she's like, Joel, say congrats. And he just says, congrats. And like his arsehole voice, Richie, he's using his arsehole voice again. Maria then says, let's have a tour, because they're all family here. She goes on to say...
break the ice a bit, like things a bit...
Let's get out the house. She explains, it's been 7 years, this community. She goes around and explaining that they've got like shops, they've got a jail, which thankfully they don't use.
There's a bank initially, turned into a jail.
Yeah, they've got loads of stuff around, pretty much everything. Hopefully they have a cobblers to fix those shoes. They go around, and I love the point when Joel points out the community is basically communist, and Tommy's like, no, it's not communism, and he's like,
It's straight up is.
Yeah, I think Maria says like we're a commune of people. This is communism.
Commune. Like,
yeah,
I actually love this moment. For me, I don't think it's like intended to extol the virtues of communism.
Not at all.
I've seen that.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah.
Some people, man.
Because you just showed this idyllic little town, then called it communism. I think that's a simplistic. If you just take it on the surface level, what I took this as the showrunners looking at and going, actually, through Tommy's like not realization, Tommy is your kind of quintessential like
redneck
American. Not redneck, like...
I mean, they both live in deep Texas, or they're from there, which...
Deep conservative, like grew up basically with the USSR and the Cold War, like hating communism and everything it stands for, but doesn't actually understand it. To the point where he's been living and extolling the virtues of this commune and doesn't even realise that he's basically a communist himself. Yeah. I think it's a take on like how the labels of things can actually distort the reality and people get fixated on that label rather than the nuance of what the greater conversation could be if they are taking a more political thing, which I think is a very interesting thing because like
it makes sense, right?
It's the whole in this country, it's the whole left versus right argument where all the nuance goes out the window and people plant the flags on either side, just shout at each other. Yeah,
you can possibly have good virtues on both fronts. Yeah.
And this again, Tommy is that guy who's like, he has that realization. He's got, this is communism.
I guess so. Yeah. And you know what, Richie?
To the scale, it worked.
Communism aside and everything, like I would love to work in a world where I didn't have a wage. I could just get things and work with people as a community, and like we go both ply our trades, do whatever. And I don't have to like compare like someone's richer, someone can get something I can't. We all go to the place for food. We all have whatever food we want. We all come back. If we need items of clothing and stuff, we trade for them and just.
Joel has an interesting thing. Well, Joel's clearly a bit more savvy with this stuff. He's not as idealistic as Tommy. We know Tommy is a bit idealistic from how Joel's like describing the fall from joining like the army to fight in Desert Storm, joining the Fireflies. He's a joiner. Yeah. So he is someone gets swept away by like the ideology, where Joel's a bit more grounded, can see things for what they are, and then usually just stays out of it. Yeah. Joel describes to Ellie later in the episode as like almost like that dichotomy of like, well, some people think you should have everyone should own everything, and some people think no one should own anything, as if these just on the extremes. But let's be fair, most people's politics are somewhere in the middle.
It's a very interesting take, and I do love the fact that when the kind of penny drops for Tommy, Joel does a very like Richie. We've both got brothers. The moment when the kind of penny drops for Tommy, and Joel actively like turns around to him and was like, "I got you." Like, yeah, it's communism, dipshit. And there's like he loves it like a little hand gesture and turns back towards the camera with like a smug look on his face. So it's like, older brother was right, you were wrong.
Joel's I've taken him as like the kind of quite apolitical. Just keeps their head down, gets on with things, but has a deeper understanding of the situation than Tommy, who's the more ideological.
He's a follower. Remember, that's what he described him as, a follower. So he's been swept up in all this, and he's just gone along with it, for better or for worse.
Yeah, whether he buys into the propaganda of the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So
fancies himself a hero and all that sort of stuff. But yeah.
Indeed. So moving away from all the politics of that, because I'm sure there's not much of it goes on in Jackson, they do have a democracy. Maria says she's on the council, voted for, covers 300 people. So they obviously have some element of a vote system. So she's not the leader, but she's one of like a party member of council's in charge. We're then brought along to the stables, and we're introduced to a little foal called Shimmer, Richie, which anyone who's played the second game, Shimmer is essentially going to be Ellie's horse. At some point. I think a couple of people maybe thought, I've seen again comments on social media, people think Shimmer is the one that they leave with near the end of the episode. That's Callus.
It's too young.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's setting up for season 2 when Shimmer's a full-grown horse. But yeah, Shimmer's in the second one, and the horse they have at the end of the episode should be Callus, but they never mention what the horse is called. Maybe that'll be in next week's episode.
I don't think Callus is as important as Shimmer, to be honest. Shimmer feels more memorable. Like,
ooh. Wait till I tell my wife what you just said.
I can't remember like the horse and leaf damning being called Callus, to be honest. I do remember Shimmer though.
It's when they get to the university in the game. And I think just before you find the flamethrower, because the game I don't think we'll see a flamethrower in this TV show for some reason. We get the flamethrower, which sounds ridiculous when you say that out loud. Joel gets a flamethrower. And then, as he hops off the horse, he says, like, oh, you stay with Callus. And then he's like, oh, it's a stupid name, Callus. And then he's like, oh, I like the name Callus. And they have like a little back and forth, but it wasn't to be. But we'll maybe see that in one of the later episodes.
In Last of Us Part 2, you spend a lot more time with Shimmer.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But either way, it's setting the scene again. We're in Jackson. We see Shimmer. The group kind of splits off. Tommy and Joel go to a bar and drink some whiskey, which again kind of confirms our love. The brothers clearly split a bottle between themselves. They kind of give each other
better whiskey than Joel had as well.
Well, the Tipsy Bison. I would quite like to go for a drink in the Tipsy Bison. Again, nice classic wooden, like just in my mind when I picture like American Western bars, that's what I see. Just big wooden lodges, antlers above the fireplace, everyone just sharing it with someone playing a piano in the background, poker game going on in like typical like Western America. Joel and Tommy, so they split a drink. They give each other a bit of like brotherly shit about you've aged worse. He goes on about Christmas trees and getting them bacon, and the life will be perfect if they could just get some bacon in Jackson. I mean, everything's better with bacon, Richie, as we know.
This is the moment where Joel's starting to. It's almost a bit jealousy. He's having a bit.
He turns. He
like,
does. Yeah.
You haven't aged compared to me. You've got living in this idyllic little town. You've got nice whiskey. You're talking about having bacon soon. You've got Christmas tree up.
Absolutely, and there is it's kind of an element of jealousy that comes into it. But weirdly enough, this is where they kind of talk about their adventures so far, and Joel lies to Tommy straight away. So I don't know whether this is back to their old tricks immediately, but he doesn't tell her about Tess. He says Tess is okay, which we know he didn't tell Bill. Obviously, didn't get a chance to in the show, but he's very reluctant to kind of open up about what happened with that one. He says Ellie's the daughter. Obviously, I get why he's a bit protective over Ellie, but he says she's the daughter of some Firefly bigwig. And immediately, like, well, why? Surely he's here to tell Tommy about that.
Fully trust. I don't think he fully trusts Tommy in this situation.
Which is weird, right?
Well, bear in mind from Joel's perspective, Tommy is suddenly dropped off the radio contact from Joel, which he'd always kept up, probably for years as they've been apart.
Yeah.
Joel's travelled halfway of the country to find him married and living in an idyllic little town, and Tommy's effectively just closed off his life from Joel.
Yeah, abandoned him.
Pissed.
You would be, yeah. So, yeah, I get it from both accounts. He asks some questions about the university, the Firefly gang. We find out that it's a week's ride south. And they talk about, Joel winds him up again about saying earlier on when he was bragging about being able to shoot with his rifle so good. He was like, no, you can't. Can you?
Skull.
Yeah. Can you
again,
shit?
Another thing that Tommy's almost kind of boasting about, and Joel's probably a bit sensitive to, is like, I've been scrounging just to get by. And what? You're sat here drinking whiskey, eating bacon.
He doesn't have the bacon yet. Doesn't have the bacon yet. That's on the radar. But yeah, so we get that kind of like that back and forth of them all, and again, they're still brothers, so just like siblings, they'll give each other shit, but you can tell they still love each other and they're enjoying their time together. Joel explains that he needs him to go with him to get this girl down south to this university where the Fireflies supposedly are. Tommy can't go. Joel gives him a bit of a wind-up about, like, what, will your wife not let you? Almost, again, little digs about it. And then it kind of reveals that Joel's pissed about, like you said, him not being communicating through the radio. He just fell off the map. And Tommy's like, look, I'm happy here. Like, we had a hard life. We murdered people. We survived. And this is what plays out in the dam within the video game when I think Joel says, like, look, I'm the things I did to look after us. And I think Tommy in the game actually says, like, he says a fantastic line of, look, you might be my older brother, but if you lay another finger on me, like it won't good, it won't end well for you, kind of thing. Because again, Tommy's his own man now. He's not a kid who needs protecting.
I think it's hinted at in this moment where like Joel's like, well, the things we did to survive. Tommy's like,
we survived because of me.
We murdered people. Like, it's not you didn't do this to protect me. We did these things together. We literally murdered people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the only way we knew how to survive, but there's other ways.
Yeah, absolutely, like, and they're surviving here.
He's seen Joel in this moment as still the same Joel, that there's just purely just surviving day to day,
Yeah.
where Tommy's found a way to live.
He's got a future. Tommy has a future, and more so he's got a future now because he lets us know that Marie's pregnant. And they're expecting their first child, which, not in the video game, so another layer added to... That we know anyway, Marie's not pregnant in the game that we see at all, but again, it adds another string to Tommy's reasoning for, like, I can't go on these crazy crusades anymore. Like, I have a reason to stay here in Jackson, a fantastic reason. If anything is going to keep you in one place, it should be family and loved ones. And then I guess this is where Joel again gets a little bit pissy about, like, for some reason he doesn't congratulate him. He doesn't say, like, oh, that's awesome news, which then immediately I thought, like, it's such a
straight up, let's just be honest, he's a dickhead in this moment. Absolutely, like,
it is.
Tommy's like, oh, I think I'll make a good dad. Joel's like, I guess we'll find out. It's like, no congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
He was forced to congratulate them about the marriage.
Yeah.
I guess we'll find out if you're a good dad. Like, you don't say that to someone.
Especially your brother as well.
Yeah.
And it really does.
It
just drives home the message that...
I get his level is lost, but yeah, it's like...
That's it. And it goes back to, like...
It shows actually how cold Joel's become, is that he can't even see this happy moment for his brother.
Yeah. And I guess we should acknowledge again, like, I know Nick's saying it in the chat as well, but... Yeah. It's that moment of you've not seen your brother in so long. You've not had this kind of safe haven, this family, this place where you're not surviving. You can actually get to live your life. And then to meet up with him and be told that, again, he's going to have a kid. And that must bring, like, floods of thoughts, which we've seen throughout the season so far. Like, Joel is not over Sarah's death at all. He has not come to terms with it. He's not healed from it. He's having nightmares from it. He's having panic attacks. So for then to kind of see your brother, who you've done a lot of shit with, to suddenly go, like, I'm going to bring a kid into this world as well. And Joel doesn't see the Jackson world. He sees just all the trials and tribulations that came with keeping Sarah alive, currently looking after keeping Ellie alive. And you can imagine as a human...
He avoided the Jackson world because that level of comfort, that level of trust, that level of family just brings back the trauma. Like, this is one of the things why I think he's having such a hard time with Ellie and the panic attacks he's been having, because as he's opening up, he feels himself opening up to Ellie. It's just reminding him more and more of Sarah. And he has not come to terms with that yet. Not at all.
As you said, Tommy says, just because life stopped for you doesn't mean it has to stop for me. Joe leaves the bar, has like another panic attack moment when he sees, off in the crowd, he sees the just a crowd gathered in the square having fun, messing around, and he sees again someone who looked from the back definitely resembles Sarah. Like, even as an audience member, where it's the head is like the way the hair's styled, the height, everything is designed to mimic Joel's daughter. And he has another mini panic attack. The sound fades in. And then it turns out, obviously, it's not his daughter. It's actually just some woman who looks like her with her own child. And we're starting to see, obviously, like, open up the wounds of what Joel's going through. As we see that echoed in that he's starting to see Sarah and things. Like, again, remember, this is like 20 plus years past the death of his daughter, and he's still going through trauma. He's just not over it.
He's locked this away deep inside himself, and the lock's fallen off. It is affecting him. Again, I think this is Ellie's influence. Like, Ellie's influence is opening up Joel to that trauma, and Joel hasn't yet. He's just bottled it up rather than dealing with it. That's why he's having panic attacks. That's why he's starting to see Sarah in places where he wouldn't expect.
Indeed. We then cut across to Ellie, who she has a shower for possibly the first time ever, unless she had one at Bill and Frank's. She might not have ever had a warm shower.
She did, didn't she?
I can't really remember. Frank had a shower at Bill and Frank's when he first got his lovely steak meal cooked for him. She gets some new clothes. She gets given her iconic kind of pinky white jacket, which she wears throughout the winter months. Ellie heads over to Maria's house. She's given her one of the little cup things that ladies need at that particular time of the month, which again goes back to Craig and Neil said in the official podcast how this type of stuff, the stuff women go through on a monthly basis, just isn't even discussed in mainstream media. And I think in the earlier episode 2 or 3, we saw Ellie find some tampons in the little basement area she was in. And the fact that now she's got a more recyclable version of that to use. Again, it's something that us two never have to deal with in Apocalypse, Richie. It's not a worry for us, but for women...
It's one of them things, I think, Marie, as a woman...
Maria
looks at her, sees Ellie and goes, you're a young woman, you're a teenager, and you've got Joel looking after you. There's certain things that Joel, I know Joel's had a kid, knows about the stuff, but Joel is not currently the guy who's emotionally able to deal with you in that way.
Absolutely. You're going through your own shit. Maybe not as traumatic, but as a teenage girl, I'm sure it's scarring and scary and everything in its own right.
I do kind of like how the show just isn't shy about putting the stuff in there.
It shouldn't be.
They could have easily just skipped it, or not just mentioned it. Most shows do, but I think stuff like this, I think it is important to just put out there.
It's something they would have.
It's a normal part of life.
They would have to worry about it.
But for other people, for half our population, this is just something you have to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously in the real world, that's a lot easier than it would be in post-apocalyptic world where everything's limited. As we said, Jill doesn't even have some damn boots that fit or work or suit him properly. And you don't have to worry about that.
And no one wants a duct tape tampon.
No, they don't. I'm sure they don't. But either way, Ellie heads over to Maria's house. She sees a chalkboard, which I paused the screen this one because obviously we all clocked Sarah and the date. And then there was Kevin on there as well. And Kevin died 2 days after Sarah died. Looking at the dates on the calendar, it was like the 26th and the 27th and 29th, I believe it was, in September, which is the outbreak day, and then the next one after that. Which again, I don't know about you, I was thinking like, who the hell's Kevin in this scenario? Like, is there someone we don't know?
He was 3-year-old Kevin.
Yeah, which is a shame, big shame, of course. Maria gives Ellie a haircut, and the kind of it's definitely not a bonding moment, I'd say. Ellie's very reluctant to even speaking to Maria.
Kind of the opposite to a bonding moment, to be honest. In the last Verse official podcast, they described it as a kind of a battle.
It's like a battle of wits, right? Where Maria's probing to find out who this girl is and what's her relationship with Joel, why is she here, and why does she trust him? Because obviously Maria's not trustworthy of Joel at all. And Ellie's been defensive. She's trying not to give the game away, but also she's been that combative teenager who's got a foul mouth on her, wants to push back against authority in anything in any given way. And they're just having a casual haircut while this is all going down. And you're right. I think Neil Druckmann in the official podcast says how, this is to him as much as the action sequence was at the end of the last episode. This is two strong-willed, intellectual women going toe-to-toe, almost like on a political front where, everyone needs to exchange words.
It's conflict.
Yeah, but they're not exchanging them in a direct, like, violent or aggressive way. They're just...
They're trying to outmaneuver each other.
It's a game of chess. It's a vocal game of chess that they're having. And this is where, Ellie finds out about Sarah. Pretty sure Maria didn't accidentally drop that in there. Because, again, you're going to... I feel like nothing was said by accident in this conversation.
No, absolutely nothing. Like, the fact that even Ellie's saying, oh, sorry about your kids, plural, was probably... I think Ellie's probably got the...
She can tell by looking at the date of births and everything.
Joel's had a kid. She knows Joel's probably had a kid. She probably even suspects he's had a daughter as well. And then it's like, so right going, oh, sorry about your kids and having kid. The other one's Joel's. That's like, okay, we're getting... Maria's just dropping... I'm going to drop this information. Let's see how you react to that info. Yeah.
It is a battle of wits, isn't it? Back and forth.
I do think Ellie was a little bit shaken. Actually, when it was confirmed that Sarah was Joel's kid, she just kind of paused and hesitate a bit. I think that was very much a shot landed by Maria. Yeah,
it probably well was, just to kind of see what the relationship is with the two of them. And she goes in a bit more depth about killing innocent people. Like, Ellie opens up and says, what about him killing people? Like, as though trying to catch... Maria's chess move was, I'm going to tell this young girl that Joel kills people, and Ellie straight away is like, I know about that. He tells me all the time. We know each other through and through. Yeah, like it's that thing of like almost like trying to maybe convince Ellie that she's in the wrong scenario, and Ellie's just like, it's almost like a jilted ex in a way of saying like, I'm with my current girlfriend and I'm telling you things to undermine your ex-girlfriend, and it's like, I'm not playing at your game, bitch.
The point I was making is like, I think Maria blames Joel for everything, all the horrible shit that Tommy's done. Where I don't think Tommy sees it in this kind of the same way. I think he's always viewed it as, this is things we did to survive together. Yeah. And like, I think Ellie kind of sees probably the truth of it more than Maria in this situation, whereas actually, no, they've both done. Joel may have been more the leader in the duo, but Tommy was stood there alongside him. Like,
yeah, I mean, he's still an adult.
Yeah.
Like, even 20 years ago, Tommy wasn't a kid. He was still very much an adult. He's aged
like,
better, obviously,
don't
but
blame
yeah.
Joel for everything that Tommy's done.
Yeah.
They were in this together.
Absolutely.
They did horrible shit. No one's pretending they weren't, but
yeah,
it's almost like Maria, because Maria's background in law, she says to Ellie, her job was to put bad guys away. I think do you think it's almost this kind of thing where she needs Joel to be the bad guy, so Tommy's almost like an innocent?
Yeah,
he got
possibly.
dragged along for the ride.
Quite possibly.
Yeah,
And
I think that might come into play. This is one of the things will come into play in the next season.
Oh, it'll definitely come back and bite him on the ass. I think in the game there's a great line. There's a great quote from Joel about Maria when he's like, "Your wife scares me," and for a good reason. And that's the reason that's the joke reason he takes Ellie in the end. But yes, either way, Maria says, "Yeah, we can only be betrayed by the people we trust." So it's kind of be careful who you put your faith in. Is what she says, and then we kind of cut across to everybody watching a movie. Ellie's been shunted off with the other kids in the community, and they're all watching this big communal movie. The Goodbye Girl is the movie that's been broadcast on the screen.
Really not happy. By the fact she's getting treated like a child.
She's back to, kind of having this autonomy of being an adult too, right? Kids don't have guns. We took that off you. Kids don't talk like that. And then now you're going to go sit and watch a movie when she's essentially been surviving in the wild with Joel for 3-4 months now. Yeah. It's a very stark contrast to what she's probably used to. Almost like a fish out of water scenario. The Goodbye Girl movie, I'm not too sure about this. Like, they didn't really reference it much in the podcast, which I thought they would have done about why they chose this movie. Usually Craig Mazin picks something with like an underlying layer of like the movie resonates or echoes the sentiments of this episode or something, and just nothing.
There's probably stuff in there about someone who hasn't seen the film, and it wasn't, as you mentioned, wasn't brought up in the podcast. I don't really know much about it.
Yeah, I was hoping it would be Jurassic Park, because we know in the games Joel's a big fan of Jurassic Park, so I thought that would have been epic to just have a random moment of a T-Rex eat the guy on the toilet or something. But
I'm
no.
guessing it's very thematically similar to this episode.
Yeah, that's usually the way it goes. What a great movie to put on for kids, everyone. Not that I've seen it, so I can't attest to it. We cut across to Joel and Tommy. Having a conversation. Joel's got his new boots. Tommy's given them. He apologises. They kind of make up for it. Again, sibling rivalry. You fall out with your family members, but again, one of the great things about being a family is kind of everything just resets after a period of time. Like a day later, the next morning, he's like, yeah, I might have punched you in the head last night, but we're cool again, right? And then that's sibling rivalry. He does say that, he's Tommy says to Joel, like, he knows he's happy for him. It's just complicated for you. So Tommy kind of acknowledges the whole Sarah thing again.
You said some horrible shit to me earlier. It's water under the bridge.
Yeah.
This is a peace offering. Let's just...
Hopefully not that scary bridge from earlier on.
Everything that you've just experienced today is very hard for you to take in. I get that. I was there with you when all this shit went down.
Mm-hmm. And obviously Sarah will have meant something to Tommy as well. So he's well aware of, like, yeah, exactly, and he was there.
He watched her die.
Yeah, so it's just as bad.
This is traumatizing for Joel, but like, Tommy, as Sarah's uncle, stood there and watched her die in Joel's arm. He's going to be fucked up by that.
Yeah, he seemingly has better coping mechanisms, but he's moving on.
He wrote a name on the chalkboard. That's how much Sarah meant. It wasn't his kid, but he's honouring it in his own way. It's like...
Absolutely. They have a conversation about the kind of the journey that's ahead. Joel asks about, is it being a suicide mission? Like, what's really out there? Then this is when Joel kind of like, he lets his guard down. He's like, he's obviously my brother. He explains about Ellie's immunity. He explains the story. He explains Tess has died. He basically opens up on everything in the highest point ever, I think, in both the games and the TV show to date, where we see Joel's true vulnerability. Like, he explains about the panic attacks, everything that happened in Kansas City, him being scared that it's just he's too slow to react, he's getting old, he can't do it the way he used to do, he's afraid, he's weak, and it just kind of summarizes...
It's not really about Joel saving Tommy. I think it's about Joel needing to be saved by Tommy. That's why he's being so fixated on getting to Tommy. Because Tommy's the only person he can feel vulnerable around. Tommy's the only person I think Joel sees as, this is the only person in the entire world who truly understands me, who knows what I've lost, that I can be this vulnerable. This world that I'm around, everything around me, is forcing me to be this ruthless killer, to be this hardened survivor. But there's still this fragile dad underneath, and Tommy is the only person I'm comfortable being the fragile dad around.
Yeah, and let's remember, like, he was just a single parent who worked as a contractor in a normal world. Like, he wasn't a cold-hearted killer and stuff. The world has made him what he is today, and this is the first time we really just see Joel kind of open his heart and just say, like, I am fucked up inside. Like, I am not good. I am still suffering from this. It really, really, and phenomenal kind of performance from Pedro Pascal here, really showing all range of emotion and fragility and everything. And Tommy, like, again, he's trying to just convince Tommy, like, you need to take this girl because I am not strong enough. I can't do this again like I did for you, like I couldn't do for Sarah. Like, I will get her killed if she stays with me. Like, you need to take her. And this is where we're like, okay, like, he needs help. He's opened up to it.
There's a line he says that just broke me. I'm failing in my sleep. It's all I do. It's all I've ever done. He sees himself as a failure. And even when he goes to sleep, he doesn't escape that thing that's gnawing at him. The fact that he feels like he's failed Sarah.
Yeah.
He feels like he's failed Tommy.
Tess.
He feels he's failed. He feels like he's failed Tess. Everyone he's known, he's failed. And he's looking at Ellie and going, I can't fail her. I can't do this again.
Go through the ringer.
He's emotionally broken. Like,
absolutely.
This is where I think this is the moment where he's really starting to come, for the first time in decades, come to terms with everything that's happened to him.
He's probably had a moment to breathe.
Again, it's Ellie who's brought it out of him. He's let himself. This person's breaking him down, making him more vulnerable, and that hard out shell that he's kept intact since Outbreak Day, it's now falling to pieces.
Yeah. And again, let your guard down. Now you're in that sanctuary of Jackson, and your brother's back. You've accomplished your mission, essentially, mostly, and you can breathe. And as soon as you rest, it's almost similar to, when you're never sick when you're at work, but as soon as you take some time off, you're all of a sudden terribly under the weather because your body relaxes just naturally, and then it kind of lets it all in.
It's kind of an emotional equivalent to that.
Yeah, and we kind of move on, and throughout this whole conversation, I was expecting it to cut to, like, maybe Ellie in the shadows or something, because Ellie sneaks away from the cinema, so she's gone somewhere, and we don't know where, and she's clearly not enjoying the movie, and I kept waiting for it to cut to maybe her, because to mirror what was in the video game, is Ellie hears Tommy and Joel talking about handing her over and basically abandoning her, and this caused Ellie to just flip out and run away. She runs away from home, essentially. She takes one of the horses, she flees, and that obviously in the game leads to and she runs away and she hides in a little country house out in the middle of nowhere. That leads to a couple of fight scenes and some more raiders attacking them and such. But we find, as we cut ahead to the next scene, Joel gets home, he goes to the bedroom, she's reading a diary, reading through a kid's diary, presumably from either 20 plus years ago. And I'll just quote from the diary. Says, "Is this really?" Quote from the episode. Sorry, "Is this really all I had to worry about?" Talking about, like, I think it's like hair and boys and what outfit works with what, and it's very just like common problems like people have today that aren't really problems.
Almost line for line from the game.
Yeah,
this scene.
Reading from the diary.
Everything down to how Ellie sat on, like, the windowsill.
Yeah, indeed. It's, again, very reminiscent. She says to Joel, if you're going to ditch me, just ditch me. She clearly overheard the conversation. Again, I would have liked to say I overhear it, just cut to her in the shadows or just outside the doorway listening in, just to kind of tie them two together. She's very aggressive. She asks Joel, like, do you give a shit about me or not? And then, like you said, line for line, almost, she's like, what are you so afraid of then? Do you even give a shit about me?
Well, Joel actually says, of course I do. This is the first time, actually, we've heard Joel to Ellie openly says he cares about her. And this is the first time that she's not cargo.
Yeah, he admits it. And he does
also, I've just noticed, actually, because I'm watching it as usual, when Joel's in the doorway, there's a picture of a giraffe next to him.
Is there? There you go. Yeah. Telling.
I just happened to pause on that scene. Is like,
and we get the moment where, like you said, Joel in the video game never admits that he's got these feelings for Ellie at this point. She's very angry with him because he's about to ditch her, and she asks him, "Yeah, what are you so afraid of?" And she says, "I'm not her, you know. Maria told me about Sarah." And he cuts her off and says, "No, don't say another word." Gets very angry, like defensive immediately. She says, I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel, but I've lost people too." And he says, "You have no idea what loss is." Ellie says, "Everyone I've cared for has either died or left me." And then she gives him a big shunt. "Everybody fucking except for you." I would just be more scared if they left. So the one bit that was left out of this, which they changed, is I think when Joel usually cuts her off in the game, which I was surprised they left the line out, but when he says she's on mighty thin ice, so when he brings up Sarah, he cuts her off and says, like, "Ellie, you're on mighty thin ice right now." And it's that, like, they're both like at loggerheads with each other. She's bringing up a very emotional subject about Joel. She says she's not Sarah, but he's like not willing to let go of that element of, like, she reminds him of his daughter.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they did a few takes with it and without, and then settled on without. It does feel like one of them is like, does it work with Pedro Pascal's version of Joel, where it just suits Troy Baker's version of Joel?
Yeah, I know they did that in the official one. They say why they changed it and why they took it out, but it just, for me, it was such an iconic line. I was like, I wanted to hear it.
Bear in mind, with the conversation we've just seen, like him basically breaking down in tears.
Yeah.
It feels like he is more vulnerable than Joel in the game, and he hasn't had to just go chasing after her up to some farmhouse and like looking for her. And
he's angry,
angry and worried and stuff. He's now just like, he's just been confronted with something that he probably was going into that room to bring this up to Ellie, and talk her through it, and she just straight up dropped the bombshells. Like, it's slightly contextually different, but I think it works incredibly well.
Oh, it certainly works. I think it's just my game bias coming into it, being like, oh, they didn't use the perfect line. They didn't use the hanging with a trap scene from Billstown. Like, there's always going to be a couple of things that bleed through where I'm disappointed that they haven't used it. Obviously, it could always come back in later episodes in different contexts, but it was just, that line where he cuts her off and just says, "Oh, you're a mighty thin ice," is like such an iconic part. But we digress with that one. She says, "I'll just be more scared if I'm on my own." He says, "You're right. You sure as hell ain't my daughter, and I ain't your dad. Come dawn, we go our separate ways," which is like, oh, like it's brutal, but obviously he wants to cut ties because he knows she's safer. She's safer away. Joel then has a flashback, which we don't see at all. Like, again, the great value of TV medium is we're able to give a flashback to seeing Christmas time with Sarah, and I think this is the beginning, possibly, Richie, of Joel starting to come to terms with his loss. Maybe for the next few weeks we see a couple of flashbacks of Sarah and Joel and just happy memories, and that he doesn't have to think of it always as her end, but he can actually enjoy the years and time that he had with her.
Yeah, I do think this is symbolic of Joel, like, coming to terms with Sarah's loss, like, and deciding to embrace, like, Ellie as a surrogate daughter, like something that he's kept at arm's length, but he knows he can't keep doing it. Yeah,
especially if he's going to make the next decision, which he does, which is next morning. Tommy picks up Ellie, so Ellie's at the door, so she thinks, like, well, I guess I'm with Ellie from now on. They've obviously went to bed on bad terms. Then she finds Joel in the stable by Callus the horse, even though they don't name it. Joel's intent on riding off, but he couldn't leave without giving Ellie a choice. And he says, like, "Oh, you can he does it very, like, diplomatically. Like, I could give you a choice. It's you can stay with Tommy or you come with me."
I still think Tommy's, like, decision.
And before he even finishes his sentence, she's like, "Yeah, I'm going with you." So, like, she doesn't even have to think twice about this. She is just, as soon as Joel kind of offers that,
just climbs on the horse, like.
It's just, we're in there. I'm going, let's get on this journey. And then Tommy again says, like, "Just so you know, there's a place in Jackson for both you." And Joel, which he again acknowledges, which he doesn't in the game, is, he says, I'm counting on it. So he has the intent to come back. He wants to go, drop off, do the medicine, the cure thing, and he intends to come back to set up his sheep farm. He asks Tommy for his rifle, which Tommy's, I bet, was like, "Oh yeah, of course, take it." And then once he's gone, he's like, "That was my favourite rifle. That was like my polished..."
Well, they nicked his.
I mean, yeah, they did take his gun, yeah, and he does need stuff to go. Obviously, they give him a horse. We kind of get a little like montage part of Joel and Ellie kind of rekindling where they left off. Joel's teaching Ellie how to shoot, and I absolutely love the line, Richie, when she misses, and then Joel talks. He kind of takes her through how we should do it: breathe in, breathe out slowly, get tight on it, and then she makes a joke about, yeah, you're going to shoot the thing, I'll get it pregnant, which I thought was like audibly made me laugh out loud. It was like, this is just classic.
After such like a couple of like
tense,
heavy emotional scenes, having just a moment where of just like levity is like, and you know what, Joel's smiling in this scene.
Oh, he's back with his surrogate daughter. He's ready to embrace the life as a father. He's had his little Sarah moment. He knows his brother's safe, so that's a lot of weight off his shoulders now. And it's like, right, let's get back on track. What was our mission? We're on route to find this university. I have a horse. I'm well fed. I've got ammunition. Like, life is good right now. And he's passing on her kind of tricks to everything to Ellie. And we get a nice bit of levity. Just like we do with all the wonderful folks who've joined us in the chat. Welcome back, Meg, Raven, all the other people who head over from Meg's stream. Hope you're all good out there. So he teaches her to shoot. Joel does the very fatherly thing where she messes up so many times, and I love it, the fact they just bullseyes it.
She's
head
like,
on.
Oh, there's a problem with the guns. Like, and Joel just
nails it
straight through the H and asshole.
Nails it. And in the official podcast, Craig Mazin talks about his own like daughter. And apparently, one of the best things you can ever do as a parent, Richie, is show off something in front of your children and watch them just be wowed by something that, let's face it, to Joel might not be that difficult, but to see the awe in which Ellie's like, nailed it.
Especially after she's been failing. It's like, yeah,
it's like, how do you make it look so easy?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can see that being a great thing. Joel and Ellie they go on the journey. We get a montage of them talking about everything as they're kind of practicing journey on the horse. They talk about politics. He teaches her how to play American football. And the best part was definitely
going in a straight line but violent.
Well, don't bring it up. And
that's what Joel says, not me.
It's not worth getting into though still. And then his background as a contractor, because Ellie says like, you did something about building right. He says about, you just built things, he was a contractor, and Ellie gives him this like lovely, almost like a superhero moniker of like, I'm the contractor, like the gruff contractor. And a bit of revisionist history for Joel here where everybody loves contractors, Richie. Everybody loves working with contractors, I'm sure, in all aspects of their life. So because Ellie again doesn't really understand the kind of economics, how that all works or stuff.
He's gone back to when they saw the dam, like he's lying to her, but in a kind of way like, she'll just believe him. Yeah,
they're really starting to bond now over like anything and everything, and he's willing to talk. More importantly, like he's willingly having a conversation about things and showing you how to, all them things before they got to Jackson where he refused to teach you to hunt. Remember in the early episodes he wouldn't even let her hold a pistol. And again, Craig in the official podcast says about, in this world, being a parent, it doesn't mean protecting your kids from things like this. Like Ellie not knowing how to shoot, not knowing how to hunt, not knowing how to stand guard, that won't help her survive in this world. Teaching her these things will, even though it might not be the right thing.
He was trying not to be a dad up until this moment, so he's only taught things which he absolutely needed to know them. At every other point's like, no, you're not going to do that. I'm going to do it. You're just you girls. You just can't go. You're just along for the ride. I'm just going to deliver it. Then we're done.
Yep.
But now he's embraced her as his surrogate daughter. He's like, you know what? I'm going to enjoy teaching you these things.
It's even then, it's out of necessity. Like, it sets her up to survive. And as any good parent, like, you need to teach your kids the skills to do well in life. And that's what he's doing now. He's like, this is how you do a rifle. This is how you hunt. This is how you scavenge for food. And it's inevitably going to come in helpful probably in next week's episode at some point. We reach the university. Go Bighorns of Colorado. We kind of get again a bit more conversation about Joel saying he's rethought. Now he's opened up to Ellie's rethought when he mentioned about wanting to be a sheep farmer, and he opens up about his kind of past that he wanted to be a singer. And it's again echoed in the game where she kind of gives him a bit of wind up conversation of you're gonna have to sing for me now. Go on, sing for me. You know you want to sing for me, and he's like reluctant to open up that much. Just like anyone who's told to do their talent on the spot, you just go, no. I either have to be drunk or in the zone for it. I can't just suddenly produce on spot. And I love Ellie's line when she's like, oh, come on, I'm going to save the world, man. I'm going to be the cure for mankind. You can at least sing for me. And Joel goes, yeah, I'll promise we'll get to it eventually. We We see the monkeys in the university again, very, very iconic part from the video game. We never really interact with the monkeys, but the fact that there's monkeys there is just, it's fun. It's interesting. It's something different.
We do get the clicker scare. There's a scare in the game where you go into a room and like it sounds like a clicker. It's just monkeys.
Yeah, there's obviously fireflies have been here. We see the graffiti all over the university grounds, but there's nothing really there. There's no one on guard duty. Just like in the video game, it's just abandoned pretty much. You navigate your way through some corridors, some lock gates, some campus areas, but it's very much just abandoned. There is no one at this university. We hear, like you said, a rumble upstairs. It ends up just being more monkeys. Very good CGI monkeys. I'll give it to them. Very good CGI monkeys. But yeah, they're in the game and they're not scientists. They might have turned into monkeys, Richie, because they did so much research. They turned into monkeys. A nice little side note.
The profession these monkeys have.
I mean, yeah, they could be monkey scientists, Planet of the Apes, and all that shit. We, of course, in the video game, there's an interesting moment where you find an audio tape, and one of the scientists who was working on kind of finding out a cure, so the original Firefly scientists, he actually lets the monkeys out before they leave the campus, and one of them bites him, which in turn means he's now infected. So my guess is they were working on monkeys as research animals. They were infected with the cordyceps to then search for cures, like we do in real life with animals, mice and stuff, and guinea pigs. And he lets them out because he thinks, well, we're leaving. I'm not just going to leave them to die in their cages. He sets them free in the video game, and the damn thing bites him. And then you find his skeleton dead where he's shot himself on the head in the science labs. And it's, again, nice little side story that we don't see about here. But the monkeys are there for a reason. So nice to see that. But no fireflies. University is abandoned. They hear a noise outside. It's raiders. We kind of get that top-down view of like four men running in. Even the way they move, they look shifty, don't they? There's something in like the aggressive manner in which they're running into the building. You can tell that these are not in it for a nice, pleasant chat. We leave. We quickly sneak around the back to get to the... I say we, because we're playing the game, Richie, you, me, right now. Yeah. Joel and Ellie leave. They sneak around the back to the horse, Callus. And this is when Joel essentially is confronted by one of the raiders. Grabs him from behind. Ellie shouts out, "Watch out!" And if you watch it in the moment, you actually see him get shanked immediately as soon as the guy charges him. Joel gets stabbed in the stomach in that first impact, but you don't notice it because there's like a hustle and everything's going off.
It's fast.
Very, very fast. And we see Joel kind of get him in a headlock, chokes the guy out, and eventually snaps his neck. All happens right. This is who I thought was Troy Baker, for the second time in this episode. Again, bit of stubble, kind of covered by clothing and stuff. And in my mind, I was thinking, oh, wouldn't it be a really cool moment if Troy Baker was the one who injures Joel? If he has this like epic fight with him that maybe lasts for a few moments, that would be nice.
But with how quickly this fight goes down, I think it's probably best it didn't.
It was crazy
Troy's
fast.
Going to have a bit more screen time.
I mean, he deserves it. But yeah, I thought that for a moment. Then I was like, oh no, it's not him. As soon as I saw his face, like Joel choking him out, snaps his neck, and then we get that moment of like, oh shit, like you are bleeding a lot, and he's been stabbed by. It's not even like a blade or anything. It is just like, it looks like the snap broken end of like a baseball bat or something.
You see it when the guy comes running at him with a baseball bat, swings, Joel dodges it. It hits a tree and breaks, and then he shanks him with it.
Right.
So subsequent viewing, I saw it as like, I thought like, yeah, it is literally the broken handle of the baseball bat.
Wow, okay. So that makes sense. So yeah, Joel's been shanked by that. Ellie's like, oh shit, you've got something sticking out of you, Joel. He, obviously in the adrenaline in the moment, he hasn't felt it or realised it. And then he does something incredibly stupid, which I don't know about you, Richie, but me and my wife are sat there going, don't pull it out. It's like basic survivalist medic 101 is if you've got a sharp item lodged in your stomach, or anywhere in your body in fact, do not remove it because it's preventing the blood from escaping.
I wrote in the show notes, Joel obviously has never been taught first aid.
I mean, let's face it, in the game, all he does is wraps a bandage around his forearm and that heals everything. So we can give him a bit of wiggle room, but my word, don't pull out the big sharp thing. Blood comes gushing out. That's never a good sign when you're in a survivalist scenario. Middle of nowhere, no medicine, no antibiotics. You
pack it around the object. And then, to be fair, he's going to have to pull it out himself at some point. But you don't do it there and then. You wait till you get to safety, when he could instruct Ellie to do it properly.
Absolutely. They get on the horse, they flee. The guys chase after him. Obviously, the attackers lying dead in the ground. This is not going to come back and bite them in the ass later on at all, that Joel's killed one of them. But either way, they escape on horseback. Joel's looking very pale and weary on the horse, which he would do. He's probably lost a few pints of blood at this point. And then we cut to black as Joel kind of passes out and falls off the horse, and Ellie's like kind of scrambling over him, saying don't die on me, like I need you. And then we end, and that's the end of episode 6. If you haven't played the game, I guess at this point you might just think Joel's dead. He might be. For all we know, this could be it.
I think that's what it's setting up, because I've got a feeling that we're not going to see much of Joel, if anything, in the next episode.
I suspect so as well.
To give that one more week of people going, oh my God, have they actually killed Joel?
Is he gone? Well, yeah, it's interesting how next week's going to play out. One of the things I wanted to focus on this particular part is, I don't know how you felt around it. It felt very rushed for me. The whole, like, I know the university is very much just in the game as an exploration scene, and nothing much happens until the end. I am not a weird way, I guess. I am disappointed that him being stabbed was just like, even though in the game it's a random guy, I felt like the whole tussle and him falling. We've said every week on this show that he's not a superhero. He could just get injured at any time. But there was something about just a guy stabbing him with a bit of wood was like, in the game it's so much more emphatic, and Ellie's worried and they have to escape, and Ellie's like helps him, like she kills people to help him survive, and he comes around and then he falls apart. It felt very kind of rushed, like someone's outside, let's run outside, he's got stabbed, now he's on a horse, end of the episode. It felt, after we'd had such a calm approach in Jackson, you know what I mean, it felt like they had to ramp up the climax just for the end of this week, which I hope wasn't just down to like time and episodic manners. But yeah, I preferred the video game version for the first time, I think, in the show. How do you think?
I'm kind of with you. I don't mind how this played out, but it feels like this is not a failure of Joel. Like, almost like his fears like playing out, how much he's been talking about, how much of it he's scared that he'll let him down. It almost feels like I would want to see in this moment Joel make a mistake. Almost, or maybe that's the point, that he doesn't make a mistake, shit happens, and that's just something he has to just come to terms with. Like, I don't know. I do think it's probably just pressed for time, and like, do we want to do that full episode around the university? If we don't want to do a half split between Jackson and the university, we'll probably like dial more of the like emotional punch of the episode. Where this is very much feels like just setting up the next two episodes. Yeah.
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah, again, it's never going to be a perfect one-for-one recreation. I just thought the video game version did have a bit more emphasis on like the panic and the scenario, that the reality that they are in. Like, they found the university, there are no fireflies, but at the same time there's other people still here, and it's going to cause problems. And it obviously for Joel it causes massive problems because he's now got a massive hole in his stomach of some kind. Rounding out there though, Richie, in the episode, we then cut ahead to what next week will look like, and we know next week's episode is called Left Behind, which was the title of the DLC that came out after the main game back in 2014 or 2013. And looking a week to HBO's kind of trailer preview, it does very much look like next week's episode is going to take place in a kind of flashback sense. We're going to see Ellie in school. She's doing exercise. She's being bullied by some kid in school. She's interacting with federal officers, like a student who's basically in trouble for causing problems. And it looks like she escapes for some element of freedom with her good friend Riley, who we know has been mentioned before. I think we're very much going to get an absolute ode to the video game here, Rich. I think we're going to see a lot of scenes. Even though I've just lamented us not seeing the university scene play out, the trailer for the Left 4 Dead episodes looks like we're almost going to get beat for beat content from the game. So excited for next week.
Combination between Left Behind and I think there was a comic book. Was it American Dreams or something? I think it's going to be a combination of them two.
Yeah, I think we'll see some possible flashbacks even further to Ellie being born and maybe what it means for immunity and stuff. In the way it plays out in the video game, of course, is Joel's injured, and while Ellie is basically seeking out medicine and supplies to look after Joel, we get flashbacks to her time with Riley and her adventuring through a mall similar to where she's looking for medicine for Joel. It's some of the best DLC I've ever played. So very interesting.
In the remake, I think they should just work it into game properly instead of it being a separate thing.
Yeah. Be interesting for those who watch the show, then go play the game, and then play the DLC after the game, like how broken it might feel. Bring it down, though, to our final few segments that we always do on the show. Chat, this is where we're looking over to you, wonderful people. Let's talk about performance of the week, Richie. We, of course, gave it last week. We back to our usual rule of thumb. We issued it to Sam and Henry for their deaths, for their emotional performances. Every week we round up by who is your performance of the week and why. Richie, who are you giving it to this week?
It's Pedro Pascal for me.
He finally gets it.
I know, he finally gets it. The reason is, he's been phenomenal throughout the entire show, as every single actor has been, to be honest. The reason he hasn't been in the conversation much for performance of the week so far is because Joel as a character is pretty much deadpan, one note, very emotionally closed off.
Uses his asshole voice.
This is the first time we really got to see Joel in being more vulnerable, has a greater range of emotions, and Pedro Pascal absolutely broke me during the conversation with Tommy that I'm feeling in my sleep when he's just breaking up. It's like absolutely got me. 100% Pedro for this.
Yeah, I think
Bella Ramsey again was excellent. Tommy was great. Gabrielle Luna was great. Like Retina Wesley, who played Maria, again really good in a different way.
Yeah, they all delivered their roles, but I think
Marlon and Florence, right?
Yeah.
That.
But you're right.
I think because the emotional range that Pedro Pascal had to show to make this episode land, this was his episode.
Yeah, it really was. They gave him something to work with.
He got killed in the episode.
As far as we know, yeah. So it does feed in somewhat. But yeah, Pedro Pascal, you're right. I think they gave him some like decent emotional stuff to deal with this week, and he delivered on all emotional fronts. Like the tears in his eyes when he's talking to Tommy, like you could see the welling up in the darkness of the room, and like the little light refracts differently in off eyes and stuff when they start to well up a bit. Yeah, that was phenomenal. Great performance, delivered it with impact, and of course he's been great throughout the season. But yeah, giving him an actual almost like an episode to deal with his own emotion, his own baggage as an audience, he was able to deliver that, and I think the chat seems to agree. Yeah, Pedro, it was either him, Pedro sounding for the week, absolutely. So Pedro Pascal then gets our performance of the week. Richie, does that echo in your moment of the week?
Yeah, moment of the week is basically his conversation when he's in like the barn, like trying to fix his boot and talking to Tommy, because I think that scene, more so than the bar scene, is the emotional heart of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we got to see the best acting in the episode in that scene, but this is where we see the most character development of Joel, full stop, in the show, and probably full stop in the series. We're probably not going to see more character development than we did in that scene.
Yeah, I think
where Joel ends up at the end of this episode, before he gets stabbed, is the Joel we're going to see right through at the end.
Yeah. Jin, for moment of the week, I think says that in the chat as well. Yeah, the bit with the dog, I think it was really fantastic, just because, again, as an audience member, I didn't know where this was going to go. Like, was the dog going to flip out and they were going to have to deal with, like, well, why is the dog barking at Ellie when she's not really infected? And the people on the horses would have had to possibly deal with that. And in the moment, as an audience member, I was like, oh, yeah, like, this could go down. Joel's having his panic attack and there's no way out. And that was, fantastic moment for me as well. But I think, we have to maybe give it to the performance of the week does echo the moment of the week, where just seeing Joel finally crack and break into what he's been dealing with these past 6 episodes and the journey they've been on. So yeah, I'd echo that one. Final one that we always do every week: best game adaptation. What was your best mirrored moment from video game to live action? What did it for you this week on that front? And you, chat, let us know.
For me, it's a conversation between Joel and Ellie back in the house. That "Are you going to ditch me?" scene, because again, I think. Again, this is one of the more this is the other emotional heartbeat scene of the episode, and this is almost line for line, apart from the "You're mighty thin ice" and a few things to paraphrase. This is almost word for word from the game,
right? And
there's not much else directly, because the whole damn scene was cut down to "oh damn."
Yeah.
So like, and nothing else. There wasn't much else. It did cover the same sort of emotional ground that like part of the game covered.
Mm-hmm.
But because they moved it to Jackson, they changed things up. The fact that Marie is pregnant now gives more motivation for Tommy to be more reluctant. I feel like they just fleshed out the characters more than they did in the game.
Yeah,
to be honest.
But
that between Joel and Ellie, that's my adaptation of the week.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I did like, again, seeing Jackson. Knowing adaptation from the second game, we see a lot of Jackson. I thought that was mirrored very well. But aside from the characters doing their stuff in there, moving the damn content over to there, I think Jackson looks just like it you'd expect it to from the game. But I think if we're looking at, again, like the emotional impact of that scene. Yeah,
Jackson does not look like the dam.
Yeah, the emotional impact, though, from that scene, I think, yeah, and almost like the line for line and the little shove and the little shove that she gives him, and yeah, says like, oh, everyone except fucking me, and the way the back and forth.
The only other scene where you could say like, okay, this is pretty much could be in the conversation was the university, but there wasn't that much there really.
Yeah, just
it was there. It needed to be there because if they didn't put it in the show.
Mm-hmm.
But if they wanted to, they could have cut the entire university scene out, and just had Tommy tell Joel, "Oh, they're not there.
Yeah,
you need to go to Salt Lake City." Then Joel gets injured back out on the road or something. They get attacked by raiders and done it that way.
Yeah, and that's where the whole David introduction happens.
I think they wanted to be true to the game, so it almost fit again. I think it's one of them things where it's like it's that the whole hospital. The major thing of the university is Joel's injury.
Yeah, then they got that exactly.
Yeah.
In terms of episode 6, do you feel like now we've got 3 episodes left and we know David's potentially being introduced? Do you think David is going to transcend to season 2 as well? No. Or do you think they're going to keep it nice and tight like the video game?
I think we're going to keep it nice and tight. We know there's 3 episodes and the episode titles are out. I can't remember what they are, but I think the last one's Look for the Light, which implies Firefly Hospital.
Interesting.
So I think next episode is going to be Left Behind, American Dreams, and maybe some David. Maybe David gets introduced at the end of the episode or something. I can totally see it being like 90% flashback. Maybe cutting back and forward to Ellie tending Joel in the real time. And ending with like him meeting Troy Baker. Actually, so David, let's have a trip meet Troy Baker.
I'm still waiting for my Nolan North cameo as well.
Yeah, and the following episode is going to be the David stuff.
Yeah,
and then finish off with the the hospital.
Wonderful. Well, that's been it for another week on the ClickerCast, breaking down every week of The Last of Us, every episode, character, development, plot, story, and much, much more. Thank you, of course, to all of you fantastic folks in the chat who've joined us for this week. So the final thing to say is, of course, run along to the comments, stalker us on social media at Helix Plays Games, clicker that notification bell, and blow to yourself on all of our other fantastic content. But above all else, folks, endure and survive. We'll see you next week. Take care.